Smooth talking knob of the north. Utter nonsense incoming. Please cover your ears.
I left the north again, I travelled south again. Well, there's a bit of a Smiths lyric there for you, but I'm back in London after the speech, pleased with how number 10 North has gone down. You know, what it will mean in future is that everybody doesn't have to come down here to have a serious conversation with the government. If you think about it, a North Pole to the South Pole, it'll just make the country feel more balanced. I hope you're excited by it. I'm certainly excited by it. The whole idea is number 10 North is a conduit to get power out into the country, every single part of it, and get growth going everywhere. So yeah, come on everyone, get on board with it, and let's make it happen. Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
Walk on with hope in your hearts, and you'll never walk alone. You'll never walk alone. I'm from the north. My name's Andy, and I go north because that's where all the real people live, and that's where there's no money, and everybody lives off gravel and bits of paper because they can't afford to eat, because all the southerners take everything and stuff their faces and put it all in their pockets. We've got whippets, we've got flat caps, and we've got an awful lot of smoke and mills. And that's what we are. Have we gone back to the bloody Victorian times, by the way? Knob of the North, Andy Burnham, got up yesterday and made his plea to put number 10 in the North. What a complete and utter plank. I'm sorry. And they've got nothing against anybody in the North. Sod off Burnham. What a great message there from Nefertati. You know, this bloke is a complete joke, right? If you thought Keir Starmer was a numbnuts, this guy is numbnuts times a million. Lee Nanalingham is here. Very good morning to you, sir. But before we talk to you about the state of the nation and the state of the papers, Richard Tice, the Deputy Leader of Reform, has joined me. And I'm sorry to start off with, I know that you're a Liverpool fan, Richard, and I didn't mean to butcher the anthem.
All I could gently say is stick to the day job.
But seriously, I mean, have we entered sort of, this guy's like a parody northerner. He's like, I'm not going to wear a shirt. I mean, it's ridiculous.
What about number 10 East, number 10 West?
Yeah.
Start with.
Yeah.
And then, we've now got Burnham is what we could call him. And I've got a new thing. It's the babble. It's the Burnham babble. That's what it is. Just gibberish, babble on with a whole load of vacuous twaddle and trip trop. I mean, it's just extraordinary stuff.
Yeah.
And not a mention of patriotism, not a mention of how he's going to stop the boats, what his plans are for immigration, what his plans are for drill Britain drill.
Yeah.
What his plans are on how he's going to pay for all of this stuff. I mean, utter vacuous garbage. And we've had enough of that. I mean, he says he wants a break from the past. He's literally, he is a personification of why Westminster is broken, as he correctly identified. He's part of the problem, not part of the solution.
Right.
With all that twaddle.
But also, how does he think that it's going to be any different? Because all that's going to happen, as it always happens with devolution, is we're going to have a much bigger bill. We're going to have more civil servants. We're going to have more people travelling up and down the motorway or up and down on the train. We're going to have more people being given authority to do more things from the centre. So what we actually want is less government, not bloody more government. What he wants is to sort of double up and double down on the numbers of people.
But that's what socialists do, isn't it? They basically swamp the place with process and bureaucrats, and nothing ever happens. Everything takes forever, and it's all very nicey, lovely, and nothing happens, and people get poorer in the interim. And amongst all the statistics, and you've got Lee, who's brilliant on them, with you this morning, I was quite struck in the papers when I read that asylum seekers, 5 years after they've been granted asylum, only 13% of them are earning more than £20,000. That means 87% are a burden on the rest of us. So it turns out contrary to what we've been lied to by the Uni Party and the hypnotist in the Greens, it turns out they're not doctors, they're not nurses, they're not engineers, they're not computer programmers, they're scroungers.
Yeah.
They're basically benefit scroungers, they're idlers sitting on their backside. And that's why people are so angry about this. We've been completely and utterly shafted
Yeah.
by the Uni Party, led by people like Andy Burnham, who came
Right.
up with this good idea, supposedly in the first place, that mass immigration is going to make us all better off. It's made us a lot worse off.
Well, let's have a look at, if we can, Pooch. There's one clip that I just want to show you, and it's not Manchester, it's London actually, but this is absolutely appalling because I didn't know it was this bad. But the state of Park Lane, and you may have seen it recently, which is full of immigrants in tents, living there in tented city, Park Lane. This is one of the most expensive parts of London. I think this is where are we? Number 5. Yeah, let's have a look at this. Yeah. I mean, there's a couple of brain surgeons at the end there, looking for work, but otherwise...
The first one, I think,
shocking.
was actually Paddington.
Yeah.
And as you say, the last bit there was Oxford Street.
Yeah.
And that is a regular occurrence, supposedly in the greatest capital on earth. And let's just remind everybody, homelessness in the centre of Manchester under the Burnham regime hasn't improved either.
No.
All he's succeeded in doing, which anybody could do, is give a whole load of soft government loans to property developers in order that they could build huge glitzy skyscrapers with no affordable housing whatsoever. Now, that's a perfectly reasonable strategy for someone to say that's what I want to do. But given that, he's never had to raise any money, all he's had to do is spend other people's money, giving a bunch of soft loans. So angry are some other people that Burnham has just been taken to the Court of Appeal and maybe taken to the Supreme Court over some of the things that are alleged to have gone on under his regime. So he's not the Messiah, even though he's going to prance around the country, up and down all the regions over the next 4 or 5 weeks, pretending he's the Messiah, brackets, he's not, close brackets. And then he'll see what his poll rating is. And what we're getting ready for, Mike, is on the basis that his poll rating could be 29-30% by the end of that. And if we've drifted a little bit and the Greens have dropped down to below 10, he might say he's going to go to the country, and we'll be ready for it. And
I think he will. I do think he will, because I think
if he does, he's going to get a hell of a shock, because we're going to win a general election and we're going to stop all this Burnham babble claptrap.
Yeah, absolutely. And how about this, right? Here's a few facts for those people who think that Andy Burnham is the Messiah. Nearly 1 in 4 Greater Manchester neighbourhoods are in the most deprived 10% nationally. Half of Greater Manchester's local authority areas are among England's 30 most deprived. Manchester City is ranked 4th most deprived in English local authorities. In 2024, 16.2% of jobs in Greater Manchester workplaces paid below the real living wage. Temporary accommodation is around 5,915 households, with 8,600 children in temporary accommodation. And 4 of the highest recorded crime local authorities in England are in Greater Manchester. So where do you get this, ridiculous narrative that Andy Burnham has somehow made Manchester into one of the greatest cities in the world? It's an appalling, I don't want to say the word, but, it starts with S and ends with hole.
Well, look, bits of Manchester, of the centre of it, physically, have been regenerated and renewed, and that's great. But the reality is, as you've just proven, the actual practical track record on the street, in terms of deprivation indices, homelessness, and the like, presents a very different picture. And he's not the Messiah. Actually, he's just another hard-left socialist waffling around. And by the way, we will ensure that he is held to account for his failures over the grooming gang scandal.
Yes.
I mean, he basically fiddled and fuddled and fudged an inquiry. It wasn't what it was made out to be. People resigned on the back of that inquiry, and the real experts like Maggie Oliver were furious at the failures and the delays that were held, and that he needs to be properly held to account for. Maybe that's why he doesn't want to answer any questions.
Well, I was going to ask you about
press.
that. I mean, what do you make of the fact that he banned Quentin Letts, who is one of the greatest sketch writers that we know in the business of writing for the Daily Mail? He wrote a brilliant sketch anyway. He didn't need to be there. But he also refused to take any questions and was sort of hustled out the back into the ministerial Range Rover, and driven away. What sort of start is that? He doesn't want to answer any questions from the press?
I mean, he's like the head of the Stasi, just being sort of bundled into this, bundled out of that. I mean, just all in his black jacket and his black T-shirt. I mean, it's pretty surreal, actually. It really is. It's like he's the no man that's just rocked up and succeeded in his coup. He's conned 400 Labour MPs. Now he's going to sort of drift around, meander around the country, conning gullible members of the country who don't know who this bloke is, thinking that everything's fine, when actually he's got no idea how he's going to pay for anything. And I think we're going to see, if he doesn't call an election, when we get to November and there's a budget, I tell you what, it's going to be ugly, really ugly. And that's that was after, of course, we learn who's going to be his chancellor. The idea that Ed Miliband, Millipede himself, could sort of stagger his way into number 11 and rape and pillage all our bank accounts so that he can fund a growing collection of ukuleles is for the birds.
Yeah, absolutely. Shabana Mahmood, meanwhile, seems to have gone mad. She's decided this is a great time to announce that she wants to bring in more refugees. And I thought to myself at the weekend, even if you wanted to do that because you were so absolutely wedded to the idea that we need more foreigners, this is really not a good time to announce that, right? We then get this morning, front page of The Sun, you may not have known if you've seen it yet, but it's Migrant Street is what it says. There it is. They're saying that there's a total of 83 asylum seekers to be moved in to £250,000 homes on an estate in Shropshire, a place called Stoke Heath. Where they can all live happily ever after on the taxpayers' dollar. Unbelievable.
Can't make this stuff up. They should be in tents in a remote military compound somewhere, as I say, very remote before they're deported. The idea that you're giving them these incredibly valuable new homes that if there were any spare, then they should be for our brave veterans who are homeless.
Yeah. Right.
As opposed to from a bunch of people who've just broken into the country illegally. And the idea that you want to have some form of extra quantity of safe and legal routes, frankly, people are absolutely sick and tired. We are rammed full of illegals, rammed full of people who've come into the country who are scrounging on benefits, but not contributing, they're not working, they're not integrating, they're not speaking the language. And I mean, the country is at an absolute tipping point on this, and they think it's a good idea to invite a whole load more. It's not surprising.
Yeah, I know.
Everyone's queuing up on the beaches of Normandy and around Calais, for heaven's sake. I mean, it just beggars belief, the stupidity of these morons.
It is amazing. It's like World Cup without football. Just come in and have a good time. It's marvellous. I know you've got to run, so I'm going to keep it short. Final question. You've selected your candidate for the Manchester mayoral election. What do you make of all of this kind of, I would say, chatter? And I think it is just chatter amongst the sort of the chattering classes that, Nigel Farage is a bit of trouble. The Reform Party is in absolute chaos. They're all arguing with each other. I mean, you don't look any different to the way you looked a couple of months ago, to be honest. I mean, very handsome as ever. And I will be no doubt pilloried for being too nice to you. But, I'm not buying this nonsense that, Reform are on the ropes. Tell me what you think.
Far from being on the ropes, we've got our boxing gloves on and we are taking on the opposition. That's why we're leading in all the national polls. That's why just last Thursday we won 7 out of 21 council by-elections and we're getting ready for an early general election. And that's the simple reality. Look, our doubters led by people like Dan Hodges, sort of desperate to sort of prop up the remnants of the toxicity of the Tory party. That's the nature of politics. Fine, we're just pushing on. We're working really hard on policies. We're looking forward to our conference at the beginning of September, which is going to be outstanding. A really important 3-day conference starting on Thursday the 3rd. Maybe you should come up to Birmingham and do your show live from there, Mike.
I should.
You might learn a thing or two.
I should. Well, you know,
might
Hodges.
learn how to sing.
Hodges now, Hodges has now lost the plot altogether, right? Because he spent the best part of the last 2 years after I groomed him, and he doesn't like me saying it, so I'm going to keep saying it, after I groomed him to hate Keir Starmer. He now doesn't know what to do. His headline on his piece today, right, is about as newsworthy as my left foot. It says, I've been told Team Burnham is already scoping out locations for Northern Number 10. Sorry, is that news? Is that news? I mean, if I was the Daily Mail, I'd sack Hodges today and go, right, thanks very much indeed. You've done your best. Go now work for the Independent or something.
Yeah, look, but we're not afraid to face scrutiny. At press conferences, we take anywhere between a dozen and 20 questions from all the journalists there. Nigel does it, I do it, others do it. And that's who we are. We're a growing team. Our Greater Manchester mayoral candidate, Sean Astley, is a fantastic candidate and will be battling and fighting hard to win as many votes as possible. The Labour have tried to stitch it up by going to a supplemental vote system. Well, we'll wait and see. It's set for the end of July. Bring it on.
Yeah, absolutely. Good to see you, Richard. Thank you very much indeed.
Nice
Richard Tice,
Deputy
Leader of Reform, there telling us that they're ready for an election, if there is one, and Andy Burnham really is not the answer. He certainly is not the Messiah. That's absolutely for sure. Lee Nalalingham is here. Lee, very good morning to you. Good to see you. Let me, before we go, we get started on the way the papers are covering Burnham's speech yesterday, which I have to say, by the way, the sort of the fawning and the bowing and scraping that's going on in the media, where nobody's actually asking questions like, who the hell do you think you are? And why do you think you've got the right to suddenly, acquire the prime ministership of this country? Nobody's asked him that. And of course, yesterday, he wouldn't allow anyone to ask him any questions anyway. But can we have a look, please, Pooch, at number 6? Burnham talking about number 10 North.
Will be driven through the Prime Minister's office in an extended operation based here in Manchester. But here's the important thing. It will only be based here. The job of Number 10 North will be to make power flow into the Midlands, into the southwest, into the east of England, and yes, into London, as I said before, as much as into the northeast, Yorkshire and the Humber, and here in the northwest. It will be about offering new opportunities to extend devolution in Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland by taking power deeper down. The people of Dundee and Bangor feel just as distant from Holyrood and the Senedd as they do from Westminster.
The smooth-talking knob of the North. Utter nonsense incoming. Please cover your ears.
That is the Starmer alert, the Burnham alert, by the way, as best we can do. We might come up with another slightly more sort of dangerous one. But, you just want to start singing songs from the Human League. I mean, put a bleeded shirt on, wear a tie. If you want to be the Prime Minister, dress as if you are the Prime Minister. But at the moment, you're dressing like you look like you're in some kind of boy band, right? Tony says, checklist, flat cap, Springer Spaniel, Woodbines, waterproofs. That's all good. I'm off to walk the hound. That's exactly right. What we've got now is a parody northerner who thinks that just being northern is good enough. And the idea that he's actually going to change the way that government is run by moving it geographically to Manchester in order to move it back to London. He actually said yesterday, we're going to start number 10 North, but it won't just be for number 10 in the North. We will send power back to Birmingham, back to the southwest, back to Humberside, back to Tyneside, and then down to Yorkshire, and then back to London. Why don't you just leave it in London and do the same thing from London? You stupid, absolute and utter prat. You know, you don't need to set up an office in Manchester for number 10, which will end up costing more money. All you need to do is say, I'm going to deliver power from number 10 in London to the Midlands, to the north, to the northwest, to the northeast, to the southwest, to Wales, to Scotland. Why do you need to open an office? It's performative crap and nonsense. When Andy Burnham talks, I'm waiting for Thomas the Tank Engine to come through the tunnel. Yeah, I know. I mean, it's ridiculous. Lee, I mean, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What an absolute and utter load of old cobblers. Sorry.
Yeah, pretty much summed it up nicely.
Yeah, I think so.
I don't get it. I don't get the Burnham hype. I don't get how anyone watches any of that and thinks there's going to be anything different.
Right.
And that's before you just get into the complete idiocy of his arguments.
Yeah.
It's,
Well, there's no policy, is there?
There's no policy.
I mean, let's
no
have a look through the way the papers have done it. Burnham wants to rewire Britain from Manchester base, is the front page of the Daily Mail. Would-be Prime Minister plans to run country from number 10 north, will keep Wigan property as his main residence, not Downing Street. I mean, really? The Times. Burnham pleads for 10 years to rewire the UK. I mean, this is a guy who's been involved in politics since the 1990s, and he's now complaining that it's all wrong, right?
It's all wrong.
Telegraph says, where are we? Burnham sets out a 1970s vision. Guardian says, Burnham puts number 10 north at the heart of Britain. It's all a gimmick, isn't it?
It's all a gimmick. And that is, if you think about this through the eyes of Labour, Labour, like the Tories, look at everything purely about what can I say to win an election.
Yeah.
All he is doing is thinking, you know what, we're losing the red water reform.
Yeah.
Well, what can we do? Well, let's pretend that number 10's here. That'll get us to get the votes. And they don't address any of the underlying issues. They don't take the time to understand why people are done with Labour, why so many people are deserting the Tories, why they've had enough of, as Richard Tice would say, the Uniparty. And instead, pull on a flap cap, pretend to be a northerner.
Pretend to be a northerner and pretend to be working class, which he isn't. Pretend to be, a man of the people, which he isn't. No, pretend that your wife isn't a multi-millionaire owner of a lot of shares in electric car companies and has a very nice, fat, juicy contract from Manchester City Council about introducing electric cars to the Manchester kind of, scenario. And just pretend to be something you're not. And with no money and with no real kind of, impetus and no real mandate, this is a guy who will do absolutely nothing.
He's going to do absolutely nothing other than what they continue to do. It is politics. It is running the country via spin PR and not much else.
No. Well, he didn't take any questions yesterday.
He won't take any questions.
I think we've got the clip of him leaving without talking to anybody, right? He banned a few journalists from the hall where he was making the speech. And this is him getting out of the place and getting into the back of a Range Rover where nobody could find him. Andy from up north gets into a very nice Range Rover, which is going to drive him all the way home to where he lives in Makerfield, because that's where he was born and that's where his family is and that's where he loves to live. He doesn't want to go to London that London, when he does go to London, he goes on a train because that's the way ordinary working class people go. But he goes in first class because he's made it. He doesn't take his whippet. He doesn't take his flat cap. I mean, seriously. I mean, this is just a joke, isn't it?
I know, but I've got to confess, I'm utterly enjoying just watching you do impressions and sing songs. Mike has got a front row seat to this. It's brilliant.
Well, because you can't. I mean, I can't take it seriously. This whole kind of, I'm a northerner, therefore I'm better than you. That's kind of what he's saying.
Well, it's just planning.
I'm more authentic than you. I'm more, sincere than you. And when anybody tells you they're intelligent or they're sincere, look out. Like, watch your pockets to see whether somebody hasn't stolen anything.
No one who's actually sincere has to tell you they're sincere, right? So,
Knob of the North is my favourite.
And brilliant. But no, it's by avoiding questions, he gets to maintain that, right? Because as soon as you have any sort of scrutiny on any of this, it all falls away. It all becomes nonsense. It all becomes clear. The illusion is gone.
Alistair Campbell, the great spin doctor of all time, the man who invented spin, in fact, if you like, for Tony Blair, said yesterday that he was really pleased to see that Andy Burnham was not taking questions because, questions sort of ruin it. Because basically when you make a speech, you have to set out your stall and all that the broadcast journalists are interested in is trying to, get their own agenda across. And it's like, no, mate, this is a democracy. This is about you working for us. Andy Burnham is paid by the public purse.
Yes,
he is paid, as you know very well, by taxpayers' money. And he has a duty, as far as I'm concerned, to stand there and answer questions about what it is that he wants to do and how he's going to do it and how he's going to pay for it and exactly what he plans to do after he's done the things that he says he's going to do. Because all of the things that he says he wants to do are so vague. They're meaningless.
Oh, he doesn't know though either. Does he? What he wants to do is he's the only person who wanted to become Prime Minister, wanted Starmer out, and then wanted Starmer to slow down and set a more extensive timetable because he's not ready. He actually doesn't know what he wants to do. Which again perfectly sums up this Labour government. They don't have a clue. He doesn't have a clue. Can we just have a general election now?
Well, I think we really do need one because at the moment what we've got is Starmer, who's still sort of staggering about inside Downing Street, bumping into the walls, saying, I've got to come out with the defence review. So he's coming out with that later on today, in which it's going to be revealed by the looks of things. There hasn't been enough funding put together to actually do any of the things that he wants to spend money on. Times has got this. Starmer unveils new look military, but funding doubts remain. Because over the weekend we learned that he was cancelling the building of a whole load of ships, right? So a load of warships won't be built. He will apparently arm our armed forces with some drones, right? The Times has been told it includes a one-off £2 billion increase in day-to-day funding this year to help to cover the cost of operations and training, a key concern of defence chiefs. I've been listening to defence chiefs talking about this for the best part of the last couple of weeks, and they say that they need something like 60 to 70 billion to make sure that the defences of the realm are actually properly funded and to make sure that we can defend ourselves. So to say we're going to get 2 billion, you might as well. It's like me giving you £2 to say you've just flown here from Dubai. It cost you £1,000 to come here. I'll give you a couple of quid to see if that helps you out.
Bit of a refund.
That's what it is,
A couple of pedants, Mike.
Pedants, oh good. I like a pedant. Let's have a look. It's not a Range Rover, it's an X5. Is it? Looks like a Range Rover. It was a BMW, says Tom. Well, why is he driving a German car?
Yeah, exactly.
Hey, that's a good question. Normally, the reason I assumed it was a Range Rover was one, it looked like one, and two, all government cars are Range Rovers because I've seen them parked around the back of Downing Street. Are you absolutely sure you haven't got it wrong, boys?
It was an X5.
Was it?
Yeah.
Pooch tells me it was an X5. Well, then I'm very disappointed that Andy Burnham in Manchester isn't using, because they've got a massive, great plant up there. Jaguar Land Rover have got a massive, great plant in Manchester. Why is he not using one of their cars?
Well,
it's not a very good sign, is it?
It's all for show. Man of the people.
Anyway, listen, I don't get everything right. Mike, give it a rest with your pathetic Northern piss takes. Ian, are you from the north, Ian? Do you not like me doing voices from the north? Why are Northerners so chippy about people making fun of them? Because I make fun of everyone. I make fun of Cockneys. I make fun of people from Ireland. I make fun of people from Liverpool. I make fun of people from France. I make fun of people from Pakistan. Kelvin Mackenzie the other day was making fun of people from China, wasn't he?
He was.
You know, if you can't take a joke, mate, you're in the wrong station. Bugger off. In fact, we should ban him. Should we ban him?
Yeah, okay.
We ban him.
Yeah.
Ian, you're banned from watching on the grounds that you have no sense of humour. You northern prat. Anyway, sorry. Back to you.
Back to me, yeah. So, and on that northern point, the thing that really gets me as a Londoner, and to annoy the Northerners even more, they constantly go on about there's too much power in London.
Yeah.
Well, us Londoners, are 13% of the population.
Yeah.
We make 22% of the economy.
Yeah.
Right? They actually take 50 billion quid almost from London every single year and just disperse it to the rest of the country. We fund the entire country.
Yeah.
So
listen, I don't want anybody to be thankful for that, and I'm perfectly. You know, these are simply facts, right?
These are simply facts.
It's just the way of the world, just the way things are.
And
but I don't know why people are so ridiculously protective of a particular part of Britain. I mean, I don't care. If you came to me today and started making fun of me for being English or being London or being, from East London or from being from a particular part of London which is not necessarily particularly nice, I wouldn't care. Yeah. This is what I've never understood about people who get upset when you go, like, take the mickey out of the Scots or take the mickey out of the Irish or the Welsh. Why do they get upset?
I don't know. No sense of humour.
Is it a sense of...
I don't know. It's a very lefty trait as well, though, isn't it?
It is a very lefty trait, but is it also a kind of insecurity or something?
I guess it's an insecurity.
Why should you hate being made fun of if you come from the north of England? Christine says, I'm northern and I'm in stitches. Goodbye, Ian, you northern dick. Sorry, that's from Needham. Ian is probably a soft southerner feeling unsafe. Yeah, I mean, this is it. In Britain, we make fun of things, right?
Make fun of
if
everyone.
you can't
that
handle that,
humour.
you're in the wrong place and you're in the wrong country.
Right, but you've got to be able to take it.
Andy Burnham, I imagine, is a guy who doesn't like being made fun of. No. That's why he doesn't like being asked questions.
The one thing I did like about Andy Burnham, the only thing I think I've ever liked about him, is when he did that video responding to Kemi. Where he's like, it's dark blue, actually, with the thing.
You liked that?
I have got to confess, I found that funny.
Really?
I don't want that from my Prime Minister, but in terms of just purely as a piece of banter to clap back, I thought that was actually quite funny.
Okay. Well, I disagree with you massively on that, but because I'm a Democrat, I would say you're entitled to that. Let's move on from Burnham, though, just for a couple of other stories before we let you go. Brilliant Sun investigation on the front page.
Absolutely.
Migrant Street. 83 asylum seekers moving into £250,000 new builds, right?
I don't get it.
This is in a place called Stoke Heath in Shropshire. I don't know it well. I know Shropshire. I know where it is. Mm-hmm. It's on the Welsh border. It's bang out of order, says one local. It doesn't feel fair that these people will be living in shiny new homes free of charge, which hard-working local folk could never afford. It's insane.
It is.
21 smart new build houses earmarked for migrant families.
And that's the key word. It comes back to fairness. Like, forget about all of our views on immigration and everything else for the moment.
Yeah.
Just take it at face value. Okay, let's assume these people are genuine refugees who are young women who've escaped the Taliban or whatever. We know that's not going to be the case, but just for the sake of the scenario, even in that instance, you've got Doris living down the road who's been on that housing waiting list for, I guarantee, 5 years, 10 years. And they just jump the queue.
Yeah.
It's just not right in any objective
But do you know what
measure.
I find really insidious as well is that for years and years and years we were told by the sort of the cognoscenti, by the left-wingers, oh, that's not true. They don't get, priority. They don't get treated differently from people in Britain. They don't get doctors' appointments. They don't get dentists. Well, they get all of that.
They get all of that.
Oh, they don't get benefits. No, it's not allowed. They can't have benefits. Yes, they do. And now it looks as though not only do they get all of those things, they also get houses. Outraged villagers claim they have been lied to over plans to move 83 asylum seekers into new build homes and have vowed to fight the scheme. One migrant family is understood to have already moved into one of the properties, with more expected to arrive in the coming weeks. I think this is disgraceful.
It
really is. It's a massive story. Brilliant of the Sun to have exposed it. Absolutely shocking.
Absolutely shocking. And there should be a very simple rule. Yeah. You can only get housing in whatever area you're in if you're actually from that area.
Right.
Right? And you can be, any ethnicity, any race, whatever, born and raised here. Yeah. If that is your area, if you're not from there, I'm sorry, you don't get help. Yeah. It should, and let alone that you just arrived in the country. It's just baffling to me that we continually do this. In fact, it was one of the things of, if you'd spoken to me 10 years ago, I would have been completely on the other side of the immigration argument. I would have been telling you, no, immigration is a great thing. And then it's, you see stories like this constantly, but also you get into the fact that...
But would you have said that because you would have been bought into that idea that, what we do need is immigration because we need reasonably and low-paid workers to come into the country and do jobs that nobody can do?
I wouldn't have bought it on that basis.
Why would you have said
I would have done it on the basis that I was working in the city of London for major international firms, working with colleagues from all around the world, and that there be my perspective, and then... Grown up in East London, look, my family or whatever, they've integrated. My dad's never spoken to me in his language one day in my life. So I'd have been like, yeah, that's fine. And then you see constantly this happening. You see that since 2018, we've had something like 6 million net immigrants come to the country. 79% didn't arrive on a work visa. And you're just like, well, this is why, like Nigel Farage, for example, says that pre-1997, it was just about right, because you're only talking 30 to 50,000. You had to work, you had to pay your own way, you had to do all of those things. And what are we doing? Millions of people giving 83 houses to people.
I know. But this is the problem, is that a vast majority of migrants now are on benefits, they bring their families with them, who are also all on benefits, and they get given free houses. It can't be a good recipe for success.
It can't. And this is why, if you ever meet my dad, he's this little Sri Lankan bloke who came over in the 70s. Who will sound more right-wing than the average Restore voter because he sits there as well and he's just like, this is absolutely ridiculous. How can you just turn up and get given a house and given benefits and all of this stuff? And
it's bonkers.
And this is why I say, like, the whole thing now, it's not far right, because if people like my dad are still in there and saying the exact same things as Nigel Farage, there's substance to it, and we can't keep on running the country like this. We are broke, as I constantly point out in all of my posts.
Exactly.
We have no money. We have, and we lose. What is it? We lose as well. We lose £81 billion a year to fraud and error, according to the National Audit Office.
Yes.
And it's just, what are we doing? What are we doing? This stop the country. General election now.
But don't worry, because they've managed to find £100,000 a year to pay junior doctors. That's just doing the Telegraph this morning. Junior doctors have voted to end the striking that they were doing after accepting a pay deal that would see the most experienced earn more than £100,000 a year. If I hear any more guff from these bozos about how badly off they are, I'm going to, I don't know what I'm going to do, but it's not going to be good. An average increase of 4.9% for this financial year was already on the table. They've been guaranteed an extra 1.7% by April. That means that basically over the course of time, the most experienced will receive basic pay of 80,000, up from 73,000, with average earnings of more than 100,000. Once additional hours are factored in. I mean, these guys have had a pay rise of about 50%.
50%.
Since Labour got into power, right?
And that's what shocked me so much when they decided to go on strike again, because it's like, well, I think most of us would have bitten someone's hand off for a 50% pay rise over 3 years. In fact, it's utterly ridiculous. At the same time, look, I don't mind pay doctors 100 grand. Let's have more British doctors going into that as a profession, because they're going to earn a bloody lot of money.
Well, they all earn a lot of money, and the reason that they all earn a lot of money is they never talk about how much money they earn. I've had loads of these striking doctors on over the course of the last few years, and they never want to talk about how much money they earn. All they want to talk about is how much money they get per hour. And I'm like, I'm not interested in that, because you can tell me you work 12 hours a day. I don't know if you do. The bottom line is that I want to know how much you actually get paid as a total take home every single month, and they'll never tell you, because it's embarrassingly high, and that's why they don't like to reveal it, and that's why in my view, they should not be given any more money. I'd get rid of all of them, quite frankly, and just get out of the home, get out of the NHS, because the NHS is badly run, and we've now got a simultaneous report which has come out in which it basically says that all maternity units in the country, in every single NHS hospital, are operating below standard.
I've seen that.
Right?
I've seen that.
And if you are going in to have a baby, luckily I'm beyond that now. I've had all the kids I'm ever going to have, hopefully. You would not have confidence in going into a hospital to have your mother, the mother of your child, give birth. I wouldn't.
No, I fully agree with that. In fact, I know a substantial number of people that have had huge issues going through birth. In fact, my cousin's wife recently, gave birth and had some terrible issues. During that time. And then did you see the other thing from the NHS recently? They did that post on social media with all of the nationalities that worked for the NHS. And you realise that actually it's something like 1.2 million of the workers were British. So the NHS survivors immigration thing was like, actually, it's not that much. It's not that many people.
Well, I mean, you can make two arguments there. You can go, the reason it's crap is because it's run by immigrants, or two, actually, it's not run by immigrants. It's run by ordinary British people who are making it crap as well. Anyway, listen, Lee, good to see you.
Always good to see
Lee
you.
and Lingam there with the up-to-date version of what's going on in the papers this morning. Lots of other stories to talk about as well, including that Germany went out of the World Cup on penalties last night. Sorry, if you're German. I don't mean to. And the Dutch went out as well, but that's not quite as funny, though. We quite like the Dutch, but the Germans going out on penalties. Bloody funny, that. When are England playing? Is it tomorrow night?
Tomorrow, 5 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Okay, so that should be a boon for the economy at least, if nothing else. But coming up, we've got loads more to do. We've got Esther McVey coming up a little bit later on in the show. We've got Mr. Loophole coming up. Are we going to ask Mr. Loophole about your parking or your car scenario? We've got Stephen Dorrell coming on. Anna McGovern's here as well. She's opening anything, is she? Ellie Hodges as well. And William Yarwood, the return of the king.
Yay.
William Yarwood. But he's not actually in the studio, unfortunately. He's been globe-trotting around. We're going to find out where he's been, but he's been away.
Playboy Yarwood.
The playboy of the Western world is back. And also Nigel Pawley's here to talk about a bunch of stuff, and Sunil Sharma next. But first, let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, Labour leadership frontrunner Andy Burnham delivered a major speech outlining plans for radical devolution. He pledged a No 10 North nerve centre in Manchester to rebalance power away from Westminster, drive regional growth, tackle the lost generation of NEETs by empowering mayors, and deliver the biggest shift in decision-making in modern times. Cricket fans are mourning England captain Ben Stokes's shock retirement from international Test cricket, citing exhaustion and strained relations. The Princess of Wales completed the Three Peaks Challenge in 24 hours for charity, signalling strong recovery. Resident doctors have accepted a pay deal, ending strikes. Record June heat continues to grip parts of the UK, with calls for action on extreme weather. Other notes include asylum process reforms and ongoing economic debates. Later's Tigers.
Thank you very much indeed. There it is, Edward Hughes with the news. I had a couple of really interesting messages that came in over the weekend, and I just wanted to see if I could find one of them, actually, because the reason being that I wanted to read it out, because let's see what we can do. Oh yeah, here we go. This is from Catherine, right? This was about. Do you remember last week when we had there was the wildfire in the Peak District, right? And she says this. Catherine says this. I did watch the show on YouTube, and I often do to catch up on the bits that I've missed. I don't like to miss any of the great show, and I thank you for all keeping me sane. Keep up the good work. And then she said, right, this is interesting. P.S. My son is an area ranger for the National Trust in the Peak District and works really hard for the conservation of our wonderful countryside. He normally has to help the fire service to put out moorland fires, spending days and nights battling fires last month, but during this recent reported wildfire was told it was far too dangerous and it was left to the brave fire brigade to bring it under control. As usual, the fire was started by the irresponsible use of a barbecue, setting alight the tinder dry surroundings and destroying 840 acres of protected habitat. This could have cost human lives and has incinerated many creatures and plants. It is soul destroying to the conservationists who work tirelessly to help provide the beautiful areas we can all enjoy. Please can you highlight the selfish idiots who deliberately ignore all the warning signs about the dangers of campfires, barbecues and discarded cigarettes. Once the underlying peat catches fire, it can burn underground for months and specialist equipment is needed to force water underground to extinguish it. See, on one occasion, my son was on patrol and found someone barbecuing sausages on the parched moor only a few yards from the no campfires or barbecue sign. Needless to say, that person got a bucket of water over his fryer. Nice. This is the thing, right? Whenever we get these stories, right, and the London media, the sort of the ridiculously stupid people who have never been to the countryside, don't understand how it works, will go, it's so hot, there's been a spontaneous wildfire that's broken out. It's never spontaneous. It's always the fault of a human. It's either an arsonist or it's some idiot like this bloke cooking sausages sort of a millimetre away from an incredibly parched part of the Peak District. That's the point. And that's what I wanted to read
Wood
out.
spontaneously combust at 300 degrees.
Yeah, so it has to be three. Yeah. Pooch said this last week. Wood spontaneously combust at 300 degrees. You know, it was a bit hot last week, but it wasn't 300 bleeding degrees. You know what I mean? So you've got to really, really think about that. Also on Substack at the weekend, do you know what they said? They put this up, a happy distraction, guys. Who would you rather share a pina colada with? Misley Mandarin, Chris Rose, or Mike Graham?
Nice.
What do you think? I mean, a lot of people actually said me, funnily enough. Really? I mean, I would say Misley Mandarin.
Yeah,
because I'd like to go to Chagos Islands. Are we still working on that?
we are working on that.
We're working on that. Yeah, Pooch is working on so many things, by the way. He's literally,
on the coffee machine.
yeah, he's got the coffee machine going. He's got a sort of plate spinning scenario going on. He's given the Tesla some work to do this morning as well.
I'd go with Chris Rose.
Cook up some breakfast for us, you know. But Sunil Sharma may well be here. Is he?
There he is.
Sunil, very good morning to you, sir.
Morning, how are you?
I'm very well indeed. How the devil are you? And are you buying the knob of the North, as we like now calling him, Andy Burnham, and his new plan to make everything better by flipping it up to Manchester?
Yeah, crazy. I mean, I think that the scary thing with Andy Burnham compared to Keir Starmer is Andy Burnham actually has some ideas, and he actually has some ideas and policies that I think are going to be so detrimental to long term to the UK. But I want to touch on what you just quickly on Germany getting knocked out of the World Cup. It's not often we get to celebrate good news when it comes to international football. But I think there is a few lessons there, regardless of what happens to England against Congo, and regardless of what happens this tournament, in terms of Germany for the last maybe 10 or so years. You know, we've always looked at Germany, I think in the last 20, 30 years, definitely in my lifetime, we were always asking why are they so successful in tournaments and why are we not as successful? And it's always been their mentality. They're so strong mentally and they're able to win in those tough circumstances where we don't. But there's definitely been a shift in terms of Germany in the last 10 or so years. We saw in the last World Cup, they did they took a stand where they covered their mouths with their hands before kickoff in Qatar to talk about human rights issues. They talked about wanting to wear a One Love armband in that World Cup, signifying trans, whatever, pride stuff. And I think there's a massive shift that's happened in German football where they have started to incorporate this woke nonsense in their football. And so I think it's a bit of a lesson definitely for England going forward, not to fall into the same trap where Germany previously, the argument was always they're so focused on football, they're so focused on just winning, they always find a way to win. That was always the thing of Germany the last 20 years. But I think the last few years they've moved away from that, where it's been about this virtue signaling nonsense, and they're involving the players. And naturally, if you're going to this tournament where it's the best players in the world, best teams in the world, and you're thinking of issues outside of the pitch when you enter the pitch, I think that's bizarre. So I really hope, regardless of what happens on Wednesday in the next rounds for England, that we don't adopt a similar approach, because I think it will be terrible for the country and terrible for the sport.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm afraid that the World Cup coverage, I mean, I tend to watch it without the sound, just because the woke coverage of it is so ridiculous, you know, not only just the commentators on the games themselves, but when they then go to the studio. I was watching a report after one of the games, I can't remember which game it was, and all three of the pundits on the pitch were all women. You know, and Laura Woods was one of them. And Laura Woods, I think, is great. She's a great commentator. She's a great presenter. I used to know her very well when she worked at Talk Sport. But then the other two women were like women footballers. And it's like, no, I don't want to hear from them. Actually, I'm sorry. You know, and I know it's not a very acceptable view for an awful lot of people. At the end of the day, I don't want to hear women talking about men's football because they have never played it. They don't know what it's like. And, you know, you might as well talk about women boxing against men boxing. I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, this is the thing, like, it's a different sport. I think women's football is a different sport from men's football.
Yeah.
It's actually better when it's seen as separate sports. When you see them as the same, then you watch the quality of women's football, and then it's obviously compared to men's, it's nowhere near the same standard. So I think it's always better to see them as separate sports. I like to watch, when watching England's Women's World Cup, you want to be sitting there cheering on England. If you're trying to bridge the gap between the two, then you're making these constant comparisons. All it's going to do is going to affect the women's game in a much more negative way than positive. Because the first thing we're all going to say is they can't play at the same level, and that's been proven like time and time again. So keep it as separate as possible, so you can actually respect the women's sport. But by forcing this on us, I don't want to listen to the women, some of the women commentators for the World Cup coverage, because they've not played in this environment. So how can they understand exactly what's going on? They don't necessarily have the same following. They don't have the same amount of people that have the same amount of followers online or whatever. So what is the point? It doesn't make complete sense to me. I think it'd be much better just keeping them two separately. Laura Woods and the other presenters are completely different. Presenting is different from giving analysis. So
yeah, of course.
I think that's
no, listen,
completely different.
you can absolutely and I make that absolute differential totally, because there are lots of really, really good women presenters on all sorts of different shows, whether they be about sport, whether they be about news, whether they be about interviewing politicians and all the rest of it. That's not the issue. I'm not saying women shouldn't be doing those jobs. I'm saying I don't want to listen to women pundits, like old what's her face, Emma Hayes. Back in the kitchen, doing these ridiculous drawings on a blackboard, telling us all about what the tactics are like, when she's never ever managed an England football team with men in it, or any football team with men in it. It's just a completely different situation. But it was ever thus. But it's all part of the reason why the mainstream media has lost the country. It's why people don't watch ITV or the BBC or anything, because every time you watch anything, any programme on television now, it's got to have some kind of wokery to it, I mean, they've got, Gardener's, whatever it's called. What's the word? Gardener's show? What do they call it? Gardener's, not Gardener's Question Time, but, there's a woman who is, I don't know how you would describe her. Differently abled, yeah. And she can't reach anything because she's got very short arms. I'm sorry to say this, but there's no point in her being on the show. She can't do anything.
Country File.
Hey?
Country File.
I don't think it's Country File. No, it's another show with gardening in it. And I'm going, but the only reason she's got the job is because she is what she is, right? She hasn't got the job because she's a brilliant gardener. She's got the job because they wanted somebody to be representative of some differently abled scenario. And it's just ridiculous. It's bollocks, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's so true. And like you mentioned Emma Hayes there, and again, prior to her coverage on ITV, I always really respected her. She was a coach for Chelsea Women. She was so successful. My team, I was so happy. And then she's come on TV. I don't know if you watched it, but she gave a speech about immigration, about the beauty of immigration and how amazing it is for football.
No, she said that Cape Verde's 0-0 draw with Spain was a victory for immigration. I was going, what are you talking about?
Well, they should ask her about what does it was Germany getting knocked out of the World Cup a victory for immigration as well, because there's a real and the same for Holland, who also got knocked out yesterday as well. I mean, I wonder if she'll have a conversation about the fact that Germany, Holland have lost a lot of their heritage, the way they play their football. They have such distinct ways of playing football, which they don't play anymore. What's the impact of immigration had there on those two countries who are no longer making it to the round of 16, which is a norm. There's a given that Germany will be there normally, and they're not going to be there this year. So I think they've really missed the point in terms of some of this coverage. It's not entertaining. I don't think anyone enjoys it. And like you say, people either turn it off or they just.
And isn't it funny when you look at certain countries, right? We looked at what was it Paraguay last night that beat Germany? They all look like they're from Paraguay. Democratic Republic of Congo are playing England. They all look like they're from the Democratic Republic of Congo. Imagine if they turned up and all their players were white, right? And you go, hang on a minute, there's something a bit odd going on here. Are they all ringers? Have they all been imported from East London? You wouldn't expect to see that. But of course, nobody says anything about that. That's not a victory for immigration either, because it turns out that all the people that play for the Congo are actually from the Congo.
Well, definitely. And you look at, we mentioned it previously with some of these other countries have been successful, having that pride for your country, feeling that passion, having the sense of being able to, because especially in international football where the players, you don't get to pick the players necessarily. It's just the players who happen to be in that country. So you often these players have to play different roles. They have to do things that they don't normally do on a week-to-week basis for their clubs, and they have to almost give themselves up for what they're better served. What better serves their nation. And you're obviously far more likely to do that if it is your country, and if you have that passion and you have that love, then you are more likely to give it that extra mile, or in the end play in a different position which you don't normally play for your club level. You're less likely to have that ego, less likely to have that, if you like, bravado about you. And I think that's why it is important for the players to sing the national anthem. It is important for them to feel that pride when they put on that shirt. And I just hope that England look at what's happened with some of these European nations, and especially Holland and Germany, and how bad that result has been for both of them. And they look at that and they think this is not a path that we're not going to go down. And I think one of the maybe positive things of getting rid of Southgate is moving away from that, trying to constantly please everyone and trying to constantly play this almost political role. I want to see them really focused on football and just playing with that aggression that they can definitely play with. So I think that they've in the past, people like Gary Neville, people like Gary Lineker, they blurred the lines between the sport and politics. And I think that it's just so wrong. There needs to be a separation. It divides the country so much. And I hope going forward that becomes, there's a lesson from this in terms of what's happened with Germany and Holland for us to look at and just say, we need to have there needs to be a line between politics and sport. Let sport let it play out.
Yeah, totally. It's really exposed an awful lot of hypocrites for what they are. There's a funny message there about Gary Neville. Gary Neville's so irritating, isn't he? He's so annoying. Goppy Gary Neville is what they're calling him. He never sang the national anthem when he was playing for England. Yeah, I know. How about this, right? I'm gonna throw this one at you, Sunil, just before I let you go. What's your favourite thing about Tip North? This is the vote we've got going on today, the poll. Is it Andy Burnham? Is it Whippets? Is it flat caps? Or is it not being a soft southerner?
It's probably going to be flat caps, maybe. I don't know.
Flat caps? Okay. That's coming in second at the moment. Let's go. Not being a soft southerner is coming up first with 44%. But, I totally object to this kind of almost objectification that Andy Burnham's doing of northern people as if they're different. They're not different. They're British. They're the same as the rest of us. They happen to have a different accent, but they're not different people, are they?
It's crazy because he's the same kind of guy who will talk about reform, restore, conservatives or whatever in the past who are dividing the country or have divided the country and all this sort of stuff. Yet what he's done in his first speech is straight off the bat, he's divided the North and South. He's made this into almost like a culture war between the two different parts of England, and it just makes no sense. Again, it's almost like he's trying to win votes or just trying to get some support from the North. And I think what's even more embarrassing is he's trying to use his work as Manchester as a benchmark of success, which is the most stupidest thing. When you look at his achievements in Manchester, he's had very few that are positive. He'd actually be much better off starting by saying, I've actually learned from my mistakes of what I've done in Manchester, and this is how I'm going to do things differently, rather than trying to act as if his role as mayor of Manchester has been anything, like he's had any sort of success, which he hasn't. I'm genuinely worried about him because unlike Keir Starmer, he actually can speak, he can say a few sentences, and he can actually, he has, I'm not going to say charisma, but he can. He can make a constructive speech and can have it about his crazy ideas. And I do actually worry about the impact that will actually have in terms of you've got somebody who can really, hurt England, hurt Britain in a very quick manner if he actually gets to enact some of these crazy policies that he wants to do. So, that interview yesterday, I think, or the speech yesterday was embarrassing. I think it's just he's set up the country to be divided into. Why would you do that as pending Prime Minister?
I know, absolutely ridiculous. Sunil, good to see you. Sunil Sharma, thank you very much indeed. Coming up, Nigel Pawley's going to be here. The show we were talking about earlier, by the way, is Gardener's World. And Vivian says, I don't agree about the lady on Gardener's World. She's lovely and loves her garden. She's a joy to watch. Well, she may well be. My problem is that she's only there because she's been put there to tick a box. And that's what I object to. I don't care whether you're black or you're white, you're Japanese, or you're Vietnamese, or you're from Malaysia or from DR Congo, which is a really, really awful name for a country. I prefer the Democratic Republic of Congo, or just Congo, or maybe even Zaire, as Mark Littlewood said yesterday. But the bottom line is, Don't hire people just because they tick a box. Don't hire people because you think you haven't got enough dwarfs, or you haven't got enough women, or you haven't got enough minorities. You know, hire people on the basis of what they can do. Hire people on the basis of how good they are. Don't hire them on the basis that they're women. I mean, you can see it in the World Cup. All these bleeding, you know, women commentators and women pundits are only there because somebody in ITV and BBC is going, oh, we better have some women, haven't we? Oh, we've got some minorities. I'm surprised they haven't got dwarf, actually. They haven't got dwarf, have they?
No, to do with one.
That'll be next. Let's get dwarf to commentate on the World Cup.
Or a giant.
A giant.
Yes.
Actually, funnily enough, I was watching one of the games yesterday, and I can't remember I think it might have been the Brazil game, Brazil against Japan, and they referred to the goalkeeper as a giant, and I thought somebody would be hauled over the coals for that. You're not supposed to call people giants, right? Because that would sound.
He's only 6'3".
Well, it would sound in some way derogatory, wouldn't it? A bit like calling somebody a dwarf. Anyway, I don't know. Let's ask Nigel Pawley. Nigel Pawley knows about these things because it's all about the media is the message. Nigel, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. Hope you had a good holiday.
I did. I was in Cyprus.
Have you been away?
I don't know if
Have you been away?
many people didn't know that I was in Cyprus. Yeah, Pooch is good. You've been away?
No, I didn't realise.
Yeah. How are you
I was
enjoying
more
the World
shocked
Cup?
to see you in the gym yesterday. I think there's a picture of you in a gym, which
Yeah, well, I went. Well, I was laughing with my daughter because there was a time when she and I would have gone to the pub and got completely and utterly rat-arsed. But instead, we went to the gym together, and my personal trainer ended up saying to me, "Right, you're going to push her on that sled." So that's what I did. So she put it out against my better judgment, it has to be said. But you know, listen, we've all been through the mill, haven't we? You and I. Certainly, we should be dead now. But I'm trying
possibly,
to
yeah. You should be dead about 11 years ago. But
I'm trying to keep hope alive, you know. But tell me, we're going to talk about the Royals. We're going to talk about the media in general. I see that Sky yesterday was sold off by Comcast, Sky and NBC, offloaded. So I don't know if that's the end of Sky or whether anybody's going to buy it. But I'm sick to death of all this ridiculousness with the World Cup and the kind of, you know, tokenism and the women pundits and old Emma Hayes in the kitchen and all that. I mean, you know, can we not just have, how about this, the Escape to the Country presenter in a wheelchair who can never go upstairs? Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous, isn't it?
It is, and I mean, I've got to say, ITV shot themselves in the foot slightly, didn't they, with Emma Hayes, because they were trying to all be inclusive and having her there, you know, sort of doing something with a blackboard that looked like crisscross quiz, if you remember that from the 70s. Something I never understood what was going on. There was lots of crosses on a blackboard, and then putting her in this weird sort of Welsh cabinet thing with a kitchen. So it doesn't work. One thing I am worried about, Mike, I noticed this had a press release from the BBC saying they're going to dramatise the life of Christ. It's going to be a film, a cinematic recreation of the life of Christ.
Oh dear.
Featuring faith leaders, Muslim leaders, you name it, they're all going to be there. And it's coming out next year. And
Who's going to play Christ? Idris Elba?
Well, this would be one of the.
Or maybe it'll be a woman.
It could be. Who knows? But I think they're going to have lots of fun with that over the next year. Trust me.
Yeah.
One of my friends sent me a message saying, as long as this hasn't got Kate Bodley and the Reverend Richard Coles in it, but hey, I wouldn't bet against it. So, yeah, I don't know. We're going for a weird thing. It seems strange that when you watch women's football, there's never seems to be a male pundit anywhere, and that when you watch male football, those women pundits, there was a referee. Right. I mean, I don't have any problems with a female referee, to be honest, but the other night there was a couple of giants playing for one of the teams and a very tiny female referee who, to be fair, did put herself about and get in between a couple. I
must admit, I watched the game of the female referee. She got everything wrong. You know, and it's not to say that therefore that's indicative of every female referee. But, you know, you're not allowed to say that. You go, well, she didn't get it wrong because she's a woman. She just got it wrong because she was crap, right? I mean, it's not my fault.
Well,
you know,
every referee can get it wrong, let's face it. And the basic point is that they're from the VAR generation, so they're not used to making decisions because they just basically have to hang on long enough for the VAR to say, well, look at it. Then they can blow the whistle and stand around for 10 minutes until someone else makes a decision. No, I despair of where we are, to be honest. And, you know, you're going to talk about the royal family and PR. Well, the royal family sort of PR was out outdone really by Harry's mother many years ago when we were much younger, chasing her around and the royal family. She was a master at the royal family at that stage was stuck in the 1930s, and the days of sending a telegram and things rather than anything else. Even then, faxes were a bit off to Charles.
Yes.
Still a fountain pen, which he still has, I notice, as well, a leaky fountain pen.
Right.
So they have learned. The younger generation have learned, and the Princess of Wales did a very good, I thought, a very good thing at the weekend for someone who has had a serious illness that we've never really learnt the truth of her illness, but she was quite seriously ill and is in remission. But that Three Peaks Challenge is something that she managed to do. I think you have to do it in 24 hours or something. I probably wouldn't get up the first one in about 24 hours, to be fair. But, she climbed Ben Nevis and Scarfell Pike in England and Snowdon, which is called Whiffididda or something now, but it's just Snowdon, isn't it? I don't understand why it has to be. Well, we have to call it a Welsh name, to be honest. But there we go. But it's Snowdon.
Well, that's another part of the sort of mission creep of the Wokeists. That everything's got to be renamed in Wales. It's got to be renamed in Welsh. It's like, what are you doing?
You went to Cyprus. Have you seen what they call Turkey now? Turkey's Turkey. It's like misspelt. It's like geography for dyslexics.
Yeah, famously, I said, I've just got an announcement to make. They've renamed Turkey. It's called Turkey. But now I hear people saying that they've repronounced it because it's Turkey. Turkey. And you're going, that's just crap. It's rubbish, right?
What are you having for Christmas this year?
Turkey. With cranberry sauce.
No, but why do we have? I don't have a problem with being Beijing, but I quite like to call it Peking. I don't understand why we have to.
Well, Peter Hitchens refused to call it Beijing. Whenever he used to come on my show, he just continued to call it Peking just to annoy people.
Why shouldn't we? Because why should we cosplay being patronising people from another country? It's a bit like when Steve McLaren tried to speak Dutch. Do you remember that?
That was brilliant. That was hilarious.
When he put on a ridiculous Dutch accent. Just be yourself. Most Dutch people can speak English. They don't need for you to sort of cosplay being a Dutchman. And again, I don't think people in France or wherever are going to be that offended by us mispronouncing their names. And if you go to Turkey,
right,
just call it Turkey. That's what it is.
They don't care. It's so ludicrous. I don't understand where all this came from. It started in India as well, didn't it? When it was like, you can't call Bombay anymore. You have to call it Mumbai. Right.
Calcutta as well, isn't it, I think?
Kolkata instead of Calcutta, and Madras is now Chennai. It's like, what difference does it make? What does that make you feel like more authentic? Does that make you feel more independent?
To make us feel guilty.
Well, yeah. You said, how about this from John? You don't order Beijing duck, do you? To be honest, I've never ordered Peking duck.
I bet some people do. I bet there are people out there who actually order Beijing duck.
Isn't it funny though? Because Beijing duck or Peking duck isn't actually duck at all. So they chose the duck bit rather than the Beijing bit.
You would have thought so, wouldn't you? But not quite like it. But I think we have started this in this country where you have. As I say, Snowdon, I looked at one side, there was someone on the news talking about this place in Wales, and I thought, what's she on about? I didn't know there was another mountain there, and we are speaking, well, I don't have a problem with Welsh people, Welsh language people, it is in a Welsh language area, calling Snowdon whatever they want to call it. But why should we mispronounce it badly and try to understand what it is?
Right.
I can't speak Welsh, therefore, but if I try to pronounce the name of Snowdon, I am going to be struggling because I look an idiot.
But it's because you're part of the male hegemony that has depressed and oppressed the rest of the world since you were born, Nigel. And you need to learn your lesson, and you need to stop being so oppressive. You remember those great lines from the young ones? Stop oppressing me, you fascist. That's what it's like.
I don't seem to have. I wish I'd have suffered a bit more privilege because I'm getting all the negatives, but I don't recall. I'm not living in a sort of tax haven somewhere. With, private jets and helicopters and an army of servants.
Well, you're also not being handed a nice £250,000 house in Shropshire, which you would be handed if you're an immigrant. on Migrant Street. So life is not as good as you might expect it to be. But listen, let me ask you something just about matters closer to home, because Kelvin Mackenzie is now doing a show here, which you must go on, by the way, unless you've got any.
I couldn't do it last week. I was otherwise engaged, but I wasn't.
Oh, okay.
What's happening today?
Hey? Oh, yeah, because today he's got Rupert Lowe on today, right, which will be really good.
Wow.
But the thing that he's been banging on about is this idea that the government now wants to sort of somehow change the algorithm of YouTube to tell you what to watch. And I watched a video yesterday of Lord Young, Toby Young, in the House of Lords, asking the women's minister in the House of Lords about the media. And she said something which was quite chilling. She said, oh, no, it's not about censorship. It's about just making sure that what we do is we recommend channels that are more well-informed than others. And you can imagine who decides what's well-informed, right? They would imagine, presumably they would say to me that actually I'm not very well-informed, so I would be pushed down the ladder of importance because the BBC is very well-informed, and then after that maybe Channel 4, maybe ITV News, maybe Sky, and suddenly independent broadcasters like me and others would suddenly be hard to find. And I find that really, really dangerous.
It is dangerous, and it's something that happened originally with what I think was called Google. I think it's Meta now, but Google did that when you do the search engine, and they managed to put things like the Daily Mail and the Telegraph and stuff below the Guardian and other papers when you search for things in news, because they felt that, according to them, they were more reliable and a better source. Had no knowledge of that personally. I think all newspapers have good and bad moments, including the Guardian. But that has already happened. The one thing that is worrying about the ongoing march of technology is that you have a conversation with you mention, oh, I'm thinking, I've got a bit of a bad knee, and I might have to go to the doctors.
Yeah.
And within an hour on Facebook, you're getting knee pads and whatever coming on.
Yeah.
So I think already. They are sounding a bit conspiracy theorist here, but anyway, it is a bit spooky this should happen.
Yes.
I don't like the idea that someone is telling me. It's a bit like if you go into Apple iTunes or whatever, and they tell you what your favourite tunes are. How do you know? I've never.
Yeah, but wouldn't you rather? But wouldn't you rather, Nigel, have it being controlled by a commercial entity who are trying to sell you stuff which you can kind of understand and which you can deal with, rather than having it controlled by a government who are going to sort of, only watch what you look at and only kind of recommend things that they think you should see? I think that's far more dangerous.
I think that's dangerous, Mike, because I personally don't like anyone telling me what I should think or what I should see.
No.
But if a government especially, because they have their views, and their views don't chart. My view is that you have people I disagree with politically, but they're good mates, whether they're right or left. I don't ask people in the pub how they vote. I just go out for a pint and I like for a drink. I don't like the idea that because someone I'm a friend with, or something I want to watch, something I want to read, I might want to read something I disagree with. Does that mean I can't do that because it's deemed wrong for me to read that? It's dangerous for me to read that. I think we need to have more. You can't just say, I'm not going to allow people to watch Mike Graham, because you've got to watch shows to understand. You cannot criticise things you haven't seen. Increasingly, we've got people having the vapours. I'm sure people are having the vapours because Rupert Lowe's on with Kelvin Mackenzie. The fact is, if they watch that show, they might learn something. It may reinforce their views. They may actually learn a little bit more about why Rupert Lowe has his opinions. That then helps you to form a proper argument, a proper belief. Absolutely. We have people saying, oh, we can't have that because reform are bad, without looking at why reform have happened. And they should look perhaps in the mirror at themselves as to why a lot of things in the country have happened. It's very easy to blame others for the march of the right or whatever. But the right haven't been in power here ever, actually.
No.
Mosley was defeated in the 30s. So we've had elected government, democratic governments for many, many years, who for the last few years haven't actually led us very well. And that's the problem we're having. And people are fed up with politicians of all colours and are looking for alternatives. That's where we're at. And you can't try and juggle algorithms to try and make them think like it. It's a little bit, I read something the other day that the age of criminal consent is going up from 10 to 14. In other words, you can't commit crimes until you're 14. You can't watch YouTube if you're 16 because they're going to try and change that, but you can vote.
Yeah,
Now
I
that
know.
seems to me to be totally screwed up. Like, you're either too young or you're not. You're not
Yeah.
too young to vote for Labour or Greens, which is what the idea of moving the age of consent is, the age of voting is, to get younger people who are more left wing. That's simple.
I know.
But
It
by
is
the same
insane.
token, you can't then try to protect them by saying, "Oh, you can't look at the internet," especially you can't look at Mike Graham.
Yeah,
You'll have to put him
exactly.
down the
But also, the horse is bolted. Listen, Nigel, I've got to run because I've got to talk to Stephen Dorrell about it. You led me on very nicely to what I want to talk to him about as well. So good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Yeah, thanks.
Nigel
Cheers.
Pawley there, the man, the myth, the legend, who's been in Fleet Street many, many years, as I have. And has seen many governments come and go. Stephen Dorrell's here now. He is, of course, former Conservative Health Secretary. Hey?
Hello, Stephen.
Hello, Stephen. It is
There
Stephen
we go.
Dorrell.
Stephen Dorrell is here.
Yeah, Stephen, there we are. There you go. That was a marvellous kind of entrance. You just sort of emerged from the gloom, as if somebody had painted it so.
It's very technical.
Yes. Now, it says to me here that you've had a journey from being a Tory MP for 36 years and you've now joined the Liberal Democrats. I didn't know you joined the Liberal Democrats. I should have known that. My apologies. Interesting conversation there with Nigel Pawley, because I'm quite concerned about this new authoritarianism, shall we say, that's coming from the government, because they seem to want to regulate almost everything that we do. You're interested in talking about possibly why the centre of politics has kind of been abandoned by an awful lot of people, and people are looking elsewhere for answers and for what they can find that will help them. Andy Burnham and his Manchesterism, I think, is a very bizarre development. I don't believe in it. I don't think it is going to work. But tell us your thoughts generally about where we are politically.
Well, so going back to the beginning, I was, as you say, for 36 years a Tory MP. I was always described as being a liberal conservative, and I embraced that description when I was in the Tory party. I fell out with it's Ronald Reagan's line, isn't it? I didn't leave my party left me.
Yes.
The whole of the time I was a liberal Tory, I made countless speeches in favour of Britain's active participation in the European Union. And I think that the Tory party was wrong about that. I also think, and here I have changed my mind, I've not changed my mind on Europe, but I have changed my mind on another issue, which is that a political system which is dominated by Labour and the Conservatives no longer seems to me to reflect the breadth of views that exist within the British electorate. And that's why I have changed my mind about our electoral system, and I think our parliament should more accurately reflect the views of the people who elect it.
Okay. Does that mean that you would look towards a more kind of collective voting system, if you like, sort of proportional representation?
In favour of a more proportionate system, and that, of course, leads to coalitions. I actually think the best government we've had in recent years was the coalition that was led by David Cameron. I think that some of the worst governments in recent years have been single party governments that have been elected on tiny proportions of those entitled to vote. I mean, the reason why Keir Starmer ultimately didn't have the authority he needed to do the job of Prime Minister was that only one person in 5 entitled to vote in 2024 actually voted Labour. But that's not a basis of a democratic mandate, however often the word mandate is used.
But isn't the problem partly that not enough people vote as well? So that quite often, particularly locally, you end up with, if you get 50%, you're doing quite well. I know general election, they're looking at more like a 60, 65% tally, but it's still quite a lot of people that don't bother to vote at all.
Well, I completely agree with that, but I don't think that's the voters' fault, if I may say so. I think that the politicians who don't actually create a strong enough reason for somebody to devote 10 minutes of their life to go down and put a cross on a piece of paper ought to ask themselves why they're not good enough at doing the job they're supposed to do. I think it's the politician. It's a failing of politics, not a failing of the voters.
Yes. That may well be. But also, I mean, I've always believed, and I don't know whether you would share this thought, that when Tony Blair got in 1997, he kind of went on this march of boredom to a lot of people, so that they kind of disenfranchised themselves, and they kind of didn't care what he did because he was quite dull about how he did it all. And he kind of sneaked all these things in that we didn't know he was doing until it was too late. And we sort of disengaged from politics. And then, I mean, I would disagree with you about David Cameron's government, because I think that he was I suppose, I don't know, the child of Tony Blair, in the sense that he carried on this kind of management of politics. And I would like to see more characters in politics, and I would like to see less managers. But we seem to have had, since David Cameron, a kind of succession of what I would call the lanyard class, the people who have just kind of managed things, and they haven't really had much to say, and they haven't really been terribly opinionated. They've all been terribly nice, and it's all been a bit kind of, middle of the road.
Hold on, Mike. Look, I have some sympathy with some of what you say. But to describe Boris Johnson as a member of the lanyard class, and we didn't know that he was different from the other people around him, I don't think you.
But he wasn't in the end, though, was he? I mean, he looked like he was different, and he sounded like he was different, and he tried to tell us all he was different. But actually, he was just as bad as everybody else.
Well, I think he was a lot worse than most of the others, if I'm honest. But that's part of the reason I left the Tory party. But those who support him, I think an important element of his electoral appeal was that he was sort of seen as one of the lads.
He was, but I think
different from other politicians.
Yeah, no, I think that's right, and he was seen as that, and that was the reason for his success. But I think in hindsight, we can see that was all a bit of a sham. I knew his PRs quite well. And they talked how he ruffled his hair before he made a speech, how he, this kind of spontaneity that he made out was spontaneous, wasn't spontaneous at all. He told the same stories at after dinner speeches that were not in any way original. In many ways, he was a complete sort of flim-flam man.
Well, you're not going to expect me to disagree that he was a flim-flam man. I entirely agree with you. But I think the more serious charge about Boris Johnson in particular, I think he was the worst prime minister of my lifetime, was that he just didn't do his homework.
He wasn't worse than Starmer, surely to God.
Oh, no, he was much worse than Starmer. The case against Starmer,
I'm not having that.
The case against Starmer is that he didn't really do very much. Johnson did quite a lot, and almost all of it very damaging. I
would suggest to you that actually Starmer has done a lot more damage to the country than Boris Johnson ever did, in the sense that he introduced a load of things that he said he wouldn't introduce. He didn't introduce the things that he said he would introduce, and he was a pretty barefaced liar.
I'm not sure. Well, so give me a list.
Of Keir Starmer's troubles?
The things that he did. What are the three most damaging things you think Starmer's done?
Well, putting Rachel Reeves in as the Chancellor of the Exchequer so that she could destroy the housing market and business, right, which she has done.
Okay.
Losing 200...
tax on business, I agree, was a mistake. If it's a government that is committed to try to create a more buoyant economy, then putting up taxes on business.
They promised growth.
Is crazy.
They promised growth, and we have not got growth. He also promised a strengthening of the defence of the realm, which he didn't do, and even his own defence secretary resigned on the basis that he didn't follow through with what he promised to do. And we now have enough drones to last about a week. We couldn't send one ship to the Gulf when we were asked to, And he's also destroyed our relationship with the United States of America. So those are three things that I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, I'm only doing to you what journalists do to their guests normally. So I've enjoyed.
No, I'm enjoying it. No, carry on. No, please interview me. It doesn't happen very often. But I just think. I mean, listen. I was a great fan of Boris Johnson. I later became very disappointed in what he did, particularly when it came to immigration, particularly when it came to COVID. I think he let down an awful lot of people in that realm as well. And no, I'm certainly not one of those who mourns his passing, as it were. But I think he wasn't as. I think the trouble with Keir Starmer is that I think he's because he hates himself. He kind of hates Britain. and he sort of hates what we stand for. And he seems to be a man without any kind of pride in his own job, you know?
I wouldn't put it that way. Can I offer a different thought that I think is from the same zone?
Of course.
I think actually Starmer's biggest mistake was to come in as prime minister and think the first thing he needed to do was to make it clear that the legacy inherited from the previous government was dreadful and that he was therefore not responsible for anything that went wrong for the following period. That was a huge mistake. I understand the tactics of it. He thought, if I can establish that it was all terrible, then I've established a base on which I can improve things. But what actually he did was to talk people into an almost terminal sense of gloom, whereas what you actually want from a prime minister is somebody who has a clear view about how they can make things better. And Starmer really never got around to telling us how he was going to make things better, because he spent so long trying to tell us all how dreadful it was when he came in.
Because I don't think,
which is why the previous lot were thrown out.
Yeah, but I don't think he knows how to make things better, and that's why he's gone. And he didn't even know how bad he was, because, you know, a week before he left, he talked about fighting anyone that wanted to take his job. He talked about being in for 10 years. He talked about, you know, being elected to represent the change that the people in this country wanted. He was completely deluded. He also, by the way, went after people for saying things on social media that he didn't like. You know, I mean, I was listening to an interview on Times Radio the other day. A guy from the Free Speech Union is being interviewed by Hugo Rifkin, who thinks he's the most intelligent man that's ever walked the earth, and he knows that because they've got a blurb that says it on the station. He's terribly intelligent and witty. And he said, "Is it really true that we don't have freedom of speech?" And the guy from the Free Speech Union said, "Yes." He said, "We have represented 6,000 people who have been arrested or visited by the police for something that they put on social media. 6,000.
Are you still there? No. I think you disappeared. Sorry, I think you disappeared then. But this is the point that the police seem to be taking excessive interest, which I agree with you, or the implication of this. What people say on social media is simply what they used to say in the pub. I think there's and indeed still do say in the pub. I think there's a bigger issue.
Still open if it hasn't been shut down.
What?
If the pub's still open, it hasn't been shut down.
There's a bigger issue, isn't there, Mike, which you were sort of skirting round, if I may say so, in your conversation with Nigel Pawley, which is whether people who operate social media platforms should be regarded as being in the same business as people who are traditional publishers. Now, the social media people say they're nothing to do with they're not publishers. What's said on social media is purely the responsibility of the people who say it. Now, that we don't allow a newspaper to operate on that principle. And it's not clear to me why we allow social media to operate on that principle.
It's partly that technology sometimes overtakes legality, doesn't it? I mean, we had that problem with when I was working at the Mirror, and there was the insider trading scandal of the two guys who were running City Slickers. And unfortunately, you know, kind of technology had overtaken regulation, because people would ring up with tips to put into their paper that would go in the following day, and then suddenly people would start trading because they heard that they were going to be tipping a stock the following day, and suddenly it was like, well, how do you control that? You know, the answer is you can't control it.
Yeah. But look, I don't know. Of course, what you say is true, that that technology changes the nature of the question. But I start further back than that. Our social media platform, the people who operate social media platforms, are they publishers? My answer to that question is yes. Theirs is no.
Right. And what about what I do? Because now we're in this other space where I do what I would regard as a news show on YouTube, which is not regulated by Ofcom, which I'm very happy about, by the way. And I'm a responsible journalist, and therefore I would not do anything which would otherwise, you know, concern Ofcom. But I wouldn't equally, by the same token, want them to start telling me what I can and can't say.
No, and I agree with the line you were discussing with Nigel Pawley. The very last thing we want is governments controlling what is said on public. Let's make it difficult for me in the publishing world. We don't want the government controlling publishers. I do agree with that, but I don't think we make it easy. I don't think we resolve the problem by just saying, well, we can't have that because that's censorship, therefore we won't do anything. Because I think there's a real problem. I do think there's a problem about establishing which facts are true and which ones are not true, and how we distinguish the one from the other.
Yes, but the difference between facts and opinion, though, are that I can have an opinion on things, as you have, and I think this conversation is a great example of what we do very well in the independent space, because there are certain things that we're not encumbered by regulation. You and I can have a perfectly sensible conversation. There may be other people who can't have a sensible conversation, but I'd still rather they had it with opinions rather than being told they couldn't have it.
No, I agree, but if I may say so, you make it easy for yourself by distinguishing facts from opinions and saying, let's talk about opinions. Of course, I agree that people should be free to express their opinions, to make arguments, to produce evidence in support of their arguments, to debate. That's what it's. I shall remember the name of the script written by Milton in a moment. It's an argument that goes back to this, in this country, to the 17th century, and I'm strongly in favour of a vigorous public debate based on opinions. What I'm more concerned about is when opinion, when the distinction between opinion and fact is blurred, and quasi-facts are reported, despite the fact that there is clear, strong evidence. You can almost never prove thing 100%, but clear, strong evidence that the asserted fact is wrong.
Well, I mean, you can throw that almost accusation at pretty much everything that's happened in the past 10 years, sometimes at politicians, and certainly at Keir Starmer, who's told a whole bunch of lies about all manner of things. But, we could do this all day, but I've got Esther McVey waiting to talk to me, and so I don't want to keep her waiting, as a gentleman, obviously. So, listen, great to see you, Stephen. Thank you very much indeed. This could be a new kind of talking shop, couldn't it? Because it's all very well to say you've got to differentiate fact from opinion, and you've got to make sure that people are responsible. Yes, of course you do. But I don't really want the government telling me what I can be responsible about and what I can talk about, because they don't know. And sometimes they might even be, shall we say, biased in one direction or another. Let's say a very good morning to Esther McVey, though, our favourite Tory politician, I think it's right to say. Esther, very good morning to you.
Hello, how are you?
I'm very well. Why we don't seem to have a live version of Esther. We've got a picture. Hey?
Where am I?
Where are you?
I've got my camera off. I shouldn't have my camera off. Let me see what's going on.
All right. The
Well,
picture
it
says your
shouldn't be.
camera might be off.
Let me check.
All right. I mean, it's a very nice picture of you. I don't mind looking at that, but I'd rather see you actual animated and real, to be honest.
She looks like she's in a dark dungeon.
Yes. Well, let's hope she's not in a dark dungeon. That would be bad. Shall we play a clip in the meantime till we sort it out?
Yes.
How about we play Nigel Farage on Andy Burnham?
1 second. Here we go.
So the big Andy Burnham speech today, he's going to rebalance power in Britain. What it means, of course, is more and more devolution, as if by magic that's going to solve everything. Well, just ask yourself a question. Has devolution in London with Mayor Sadiq Khan made London streets safer? No. Has devolution in Wales given them a better NHS or education? No, they're the worst in the country. And has devolution in Scotland cleaned up Scottish politics? Well, I think the recent jailing of one of the former bosses of the SNP would say no. Just to give more and more powers, indeed including tax-raising powers, to mayors all over the country of itself won't stop the boats, won't deal with the national debt. And frankly, I think what you're seeing from Andy Burnham is what he thinks is the big idea, but it's not going to work because he says it'll take 10 years to lift Britain back up to where it needs to be. I would suggest those of us that believe that Britain is broken would say we haven't got 10 years. The country will be totally unrecognisable in 10 years. What the country wants is immediate action, and I tell you what, they're not going to get it from Mr. Burnham.
Yeah, I think Nigel's right about that. I think we've got you now, Esther. Hello.
Hello, was I playing peekaboo before? I don't know what went on there.
I know.
I thought, handed over control of both my sound and visuals to you guys, but obviously not.
Yeah, no, we've had a couple of funny sort of intros today. We had somebody who sort of emerged out of what looked like the gloom and suddenly sort of appeared, you know. And Stephen Dole there.
Maybe I was aiming for something as spectacular as that and failed.
Well, it's delightful to have you on. But we must talk about North, as I now call it, because Andy Burnham is now, to me, a sort of parody Northerner. You know, this idea that suddenly, you know, people in the North are different. You know, they think differently. They wear different shoes. You know, they wear T-shirts instead of proper shirts, and they, you know, they have different values. It's cobblers, isn't it? I mean, we're all British. Why the hell does he want to try and make it out like he's somehow different? Because he lives in Manchester.
No, because he's an ordinary bloke, Mike. You don't get this. He's in touch with ordinary people, and he's an ordinary bloke. And that's why he's doing it. He walks down the road. He might even go to Aldi. He gets a meal deal because he's an ordinary bloke. He obviously travels first class, and he obviously won't answer questions, and he obviously scoots out of a back door in a sort of armoured sort of escort vehicle. But he's an ordinary bloke. He's just normal like you and me. No, look, he's the great pretender. And I tell you what's sad. I think the great British public wants to give him a chance. And all people who are Labour voters, of which there are many people who vote on the left, Starmer's been such a disaster that they're desperate to find a new leader. And they're projecting everything they want on him. So he will have what people are calling a Burnham bounce. In a way, those on the left do want him to do well. But I can tell you this, when they realise he is a great pretender, he actually, I think, is worse than Starmer, not as good. Remember, when people knew him in Parliament, when MPs were his colleagues, they didn't vote for him to be leader in 2010 and he lost to Ed Miliband. They didn't vote for him in 2015 and he lost to Jeremy Corbyn. At the moment in Parliament, a whole load of people who don't know him at all and are desperate to usher him in. And once they find out who he is, that he isn't this normal geezer with a T-shirt on, he's worse than Starmer. He will be hated more than Starmer because everybody will feel duped.
Well, I'll tell you what, I mean, I already feel like that. I already hate him more than I hated Starmer. And I hated Starmer a lot, as you can imagine. And I spent 2 years hounding Starmer out of office. And when he finally left last Monday, I opened a little split of champagne I've kept on the shelf behind me there. And it didn't make much of a pop because it had been there for so long. But finally, we got him out. You know, finally, he actually accepted it. And I just find it actually quite objectionable that Andy Burnham, who has had no great successes in his career as a politician, who has not really got anything that he can hang his hat on. I mean, if I said to you, what can you tell me about what Andy Burnham has achieved in his political career? You know, when he was a junior minister, when he was a minister in the Department of Culture, when he was a shadow minister under Miliband and under Jeremy Corbyn, you know, when he was an aide to Chris Smith back in the days of the early Tony Blair government, you know, even as Manchester mayor, he hasn't really got anything that he can boast about because Manchester, for all of the nonsense that he talks about how it's the greatest, fastest growing, you know, city in Europe, you know, it really isn't. I've been to Manchester. It's not in great shape.
Well, I think there's a couple of things. I think you're right, he wasn't a great MP. That's why he never won as leader. And people, when they think about it, they'll think mid-Staffordshire hospital disaster. They'll think, actually, the Secretary of State, who never gave over the Hillsborough inquiry, it was Jeremy Hunt who did that.
Yeah.
So actually, when people start to look into what he's done, they'll realise it is sort of vagaries. They'll also remember that he was a mayor and he's not going to be good enough to be Prime Minister because mayors just get money from central government. They constantly talk about what they're doing in their area, so he will be liked in their area. And then they go over crying to government, asking for more and more money. He cannot make the difficult decisions between, are we going to have more benefits or are we going to have defence? He won't be able to do that because all he's used to doing is asking for more money. Also, this is a man who's never had a real job. He went from university, good university, I'm not going to take that from him, so I'm not saying that he isn't a bright, as in academic bright, but he's got no worldly experience. University, special advisor, given a safe seat, failed in government, and then basically fled to the north, went to Manchester to be a mayor because he'd seen it being good on a CV for another MP called Boris Johnson. So that is what he is. He's always been a politician. So he's not a normal guy of the north at all.
No, exactly. I mean, I'm listening to people every day, people who watch my show from the north and various different places like Humberside, like Newcastle, like Merseyside, Yorkshire, you know, and they're going, he doesn't represent us at all. He's a parody northerner, you know, and it's all like, I mean, there's a clip that we played about a little bit earlier where he was quoting from some lyrics from the Smiths, and it's so kind of obviously cringe. And you go,
and
do you know what?
date.
You know, I'm not a massive fan of Morrissey, because I think he's a bit of a nutter, but, you know, Morrissey's politics are certainly not the politics of Andy Burnham, and it's certainly not the politics of Oasis, and certainly not the politics of anybody who's made a bunch of money in the music business who wants to have it all taken off them by, you know, the parody northerner.
Yeah, but he's not marching us into the future. He's not a current leader. Everything that he's drawing upon is from the 80s. So whether that's his music, whether that is his clothes style, or whether that is a rehash of the Blairite government. So he's brought James Pennell back. He's got Ed Miliband in there, Yvette Cooper in there. He thinks he's going to bring back David Miliband, a little bit of freeze-on, a bit of friction there in the cabinet between the two brothers. But, you know, he's got another Mandelson pedo mate in there, hasn't he? I mean, this is a nonsense. And then there's another thing I wanted to talk about, because this is what I think people don't know. Where does he draw his inspiration from, his political inspiration? And he's got two teams of people in his camp. He's got what people might think of as the more pragmatic, your Lord O'Neills, who, you know, former economist with Goldman Sachs. But on the other side, he's got this hard core of left-wing activists, I'll call them. So I'm going to talk about a lady called Miata Famboule.
Oh, yes.
And she is absolutely, so she's the MP for Peckham now. She just got in, taking over Harriet Harman's seat. So she's just come in, only been in the House for 2 years, but she's been a sort of in the SW1 think tank, but absolutely hard left. So she is looking for a basic income for everybody. So everybody's on benefits, whether they need it or not, which could cost 200 billion to 700 billion pounds a year. Labour will say it's only 60 billion. Where's that coming from? They're also going to give free energy to those who they think should have free energy bills, and the rest of us will be paying more. But dig into this Miata, and you will find out that her father, Dr. Henry Famboule, was an academic, and then he was a minister in the Liberian government from 1980 to 1983. And that was that Samuel Doe military coup and government, absolutely savage. Killed the president, massacred all the ministers, paraded them through the street naked first, and then they took over. Yes, he left that government in about 1983, but this is where she gets her ideas from, which is anti-capitalist, anti-imperialist, known as, what do they call it? Africanism, which is about redistribution of wealth and structural change, right? And this is meant to be one of his main policy and economic advisors. I've been to Liberia. I have never been to a country so poor. It's always in the top 10, 15 poorest countries in the world. I went there because infant mortality and maternal mortality during childbirth was the highest in the world. And I went there. I have never seen anything like it. And their average income now is about $960 a year. And so he came in the 1980s, right, and changed everything, made some structural changes, might have made them got a bit more free speech, but they are poorer than they were financially in the 1970s, and the infrastructure is worse than it was in the 1970s. So, right, we don't need freedom of speech and freedom as a democracy. We have that in the UK. So if she's coming in with this economic advice, these economic policies, we will be impoverished.
Well, we will be, and also I think she's not an MP for Lewisham, which I think is the first. They call themselves anyway the first ever borough of sanctuary in this country, which means that they basically welcome migrants, they welcome refugees, they welcome asylum seekers, and they've got a whole programme of events as to how to get those people into housing, get them into London, you know. And I mean, the universal basic income idea has been tried in all sorts of countries. I think they tried it in one of the Scandinavian countries. It never worked.
Yes, they did, and stopped it. Yeah, and then they reversed it. It's all this, right, so this is Andy Burnham. Sounds good. And he talked, and I listened to everything he had to say yesterday. I thought, well, I'll listen to it. And I thought, in good northern, a good northern word here, what a load of flannel. Right? So I thought, what a load of flannel. Absolutely no depth and no explanation. And the fact that journalists remained in the room when he said, I will not answer a question, I don't actually know why anybody stayed there.
No.
I would have scooted off because I thought you, like you heralded in Starmer, were not knowing what he stood for. You just wanted to know if there was a super majority and let's get rid of the Tories because we hate the Tories, but let's usher him. They are doing this with Andy Burnham. He will not answer questions. Right? He has had no testing whatsoever. He decided to abandon Manchester. He loves it so much, but he decided to abandon the morality of Manchester, then went sort of contested to Makerfield, won it, has come into the House uncontested. This is the start. We are creating a horrific dictator who thinks just by being northern and ordinary, right, he can rule the country and not answer anything because he's so nice. He's so ordinary, he doesn't need to answer your questions because you're probably not very nice, not as nice as him.
Right. And what's your take on whether he should have an election? I think he should, and I think he might, because I think he's conceited enough to think that he would win it.
Right, so usually, if you, which you'll know all this, Mike, if you carry over the manifesto of the person before, you don't have to have a general election because we're a parliamentary, country, not a presidential one. So you saw that whether that was Margaret Thatcher going to John Major, whether that was Blair going to Brown, or whether that was Boris going to, Rishi Sunak. They carried on and they pretty much tried to continue with the manifesto. In this instance, this isn't going to happen, right? So he's got rid of Starmer, and it was Starmer's manifesto, and also Rachel Reeves. And it sounds as if he's getting rid of Rachel Reeves as Chancellor, in which case, pretty much all that was in that manifesto was all the things they weren't going to do with tax. We aren't going to raise income tax, VAT, or national insurance contributions, which they sort of did, didn't they, for employers? So now that he breaks the manifesto, of course he should go to a general election. Whether he does is a different matter. I see what you're saying. He thinks he's going to get a Burnham bounce, therefore he might go for a general election. I'm also hearing the Miatas and those on the left, like your Louise Haigh, are thinking it is a time to crush the right. They think reform has wobbled slightly. They think despite Kemi Badenoch doing well at the moment, it's not well enough. So she's doing better, but the Tory party haven't sort of resurfaced after the bashing at the general election. So they think now is the time to get his own manifesto and crush the right. And that is one strain of thought in his camp. But I think if they see the Burnham bounce collapse pretty quickly, then why give up 170 majority in the House of Commons, which you will have for 3 years? So I think at the moment, I think he is a bit of a ditherer. I think he's a weak individual. So I don't think he will have made up his mind yet. And it will depend which group win his thinking. But as I said, there's two main teams that are giving him ideas at the moment.
Yeah. Well, let's hope he's out buying some shirts and ties so that when he does turn up, if he is going to be Prime Minister, at least he doesn't look like he's a member of New Order, you know.
He might pass a law that everybody has to wear a navy blue, not black, a navy blue T-shirt and a bomber jacket. You know, when he was sworn in, I have to say, I looked at the suit he had on and I thought, oh my, that looked like a suit from the 1980s as well. You know, it just didn't
look
fit.
like it was
the
his.
collar was wrong.
Yeah, no, it wasn't
didn't.
his. He'd literally stolen it off a tramp. You know, that's what it looked like.
Yeah, exactly. So I did laugh at that, and I did laugh at Desmond Swayne shouting out, "Rome is saved," because you know what? It was the exact opposite. I heard you earlier on the show saying the BBC are doing a remake of The Life of Brian. Well, I think they need to call it The Life of Burnham.
Yeah.
Because it would be very similar, wouldn't it? They're all following somebody. They think he's Messiah. He's not. He's a very naughty boy. And I think you could absolutely do it on Burnham.
Absolutely right. Brilliant. Fantastic. Great to see you, Esther. Thank you very much indeed. Good to see you. Hopefully in person next time we get you on.
Definitely.
Or lunch or something like that. Anyway, Esther McVey there, Tory MP, of course. It's a very sensible woman. Apologies for some of you saying that she sounded like she was talking from a crypt. I didn't have a problem with the sound, actually. I mean, sometimes we have these difficulties. But coming up, we've got Nick Freeman, Mr. Loophole, coming on. Ellie Hodges is here. William Yarwood returns from his travels. But next, it's Anna McGovern. Anna, very good morning to you.
Morning, Mike. How are you?
Very well indeed. Very well indeed. Lovely to see you. Sorry to keep you waiting. I know we're running slightly late today, but we've got a lot going on. I know we want to talk about a great many things, including, of course, the front page of The Sun this morning. Migrant Street. I mean, this is unbelievable, isn't it? A story which says that something like 83 asylum seekers have been moved into a £250,000 per home street on an estate in Shropshire called Stoke Heath. I don't know. I know where Shropshire is. I don't know where Stoke Heath is, but this is outrageous, isn't it?
Yes, so the reason why it is being dubbed in the news as Migrant Street is because what's happening is apparently 83 asylum seekers are reportedly being moved into housing worth £250,000. So there's a lot of outrage with the residents because they feel that they've been lied to about these plans. So they were told, according to them, that this was going to be used for affordable housing, but now it has been reported that it's actually going to go to asylum seekers. So a lot of the residents, they feel very lied to. I think as well, I think in the UK, we have a housing crisis. Yep. Many people can't afford to own their own home. A lot of people are trapped in the rental cycle as well because they don't have any other choice. So the fact that asylum seekers are able to get this kind of housing when people in the UK aren't even able to get their foot in the door with housing. I think that's where a lot of the outrage is coming from.
Yeah, I think so. Because, you know, I mean, it's not, I mean, even whether you're living in London, whether you're living in the north, Andy Burnham territory, you know, it's very, very difficult to get on the housing ladder, and particularly difficult for people to get on the housing ladder if it's to be sort of so-called affordable housing. And these people are basically arriving in this country. I mean, I was looking at, the only reason I was doing this because I was driving down the road not far from where I live in London, and I noticed that they were putting up all these big signs that said, you know, Lewisham Borough of Sanctuary, right? And apparently what that means is that, you know, you can take the Sanctuary Pledge, become a refugee host or sublet your spare room to a refugee. And this is now Shabana Mahmood's idea that we're going to bring more refugees in because apparently we haven't got enough foreigners living in Britain. And you can give them a spare room in your house, or maybe they can even get their own house ahead of you if you're looking to, you know, if you're a single mum, for example, you go to the top of the housing ladder. But these guys apparently go above you.
No, I personally think it's absolutely outrageous. And then, so when I was working as a reporter at The Sun as well, so one of the interviews I did was with a member of the Pink Ladies, and she was talking to me about her experience, particularly with when the hotels of schemes were being run. So migrants were being put up in hotels in communities that were normally orientated for young families, that were children. And she was telling me that with her own children as well, and the people that she knew, that according to her, they were hiding in the bushes outside of the school watching the children during their lunchtime breaks. So the community, as they once knew it, was becoming completely unrecognisable to them. So I think for especially a lot of these young families as well, got young children growing up, there's a lot of fear there.
Yeah, there is, because we also know that, for example, there are lots. I mean, we've got a story yesterday: 20,000 criminals released from prison who were illegal migrants who were supposed to be deported, who are not going to now be deported because they managed to get themselves a human rights lawyer to say, oh, actually, we didn't know we were being brought to Britain, so you can now stay. And they all have to be housed. And, you know, the government keeps telling us they're moving people out of hotels and they're trying to put them into various different places, including migrant camps, which used to be perhaps army barracks. But they're also putting them into houses as well, houses of multiple occupancy. I mean, I hear all the time, every single day, from people who say, oh yeah, there's about 7 Afghan men have moved into a house on my street. It's not sustainable. It's very stupid.
Exactly, and the point of moving away from the hotel scheme is because there was so much outrage. I remember all the protests as well from people from the fact that they just did not recognise the communities anymore.
Right.
They did not feel safe, and the point was, I believe they were going to move them into ex-military sites or to properties, is what they said. But now they're moving them into homes in the local community. It's not getting away from the problem, and I think as well, in a time like in the UK, where it's so hard to get on the housing ladder, especially say young adults like myself as well. Once upon a time, you could come out of university, you could get a good degree, and then you go into a good job, you're able to get on the housing ladder. Now that's completely changed. So a lot of young adults like myself would most likely never be able to afford your own home and you'd be stuck in the rental cycle. And then as well, you've got veterans who are homeless on the street. They're not able to get into housing, and yet it seems that asylum seekers are put at the top of the list. So I think that's where a lot of this anger is coming from.
Yeah, no doubt. Because I mean, in your situation, for example, I don't want to wish to ask you personal questions, but I mean, how hard is it going to be for you, or can you even think about buying a house?
I mean, goodness, for me, it's going, I think, especially with people I know as well, it's a struggle because when you come out of university, I think, especially the university, the degrees, it's so oversaturated now because you come out of school and then you immediately go into university, and it almost feels like the piece of paper that you go thousands of pounds into student loan debt for is completely worthless now because it doesn't guarantee a job anymore, especially in this market, especially with the rise of AI as well. So especially with the cost of living going much higher as well, housing getting more and more expensive, for many young adults like myself, actually getting the foot in the door, getting on the housing ladder is so much harder. So I really feel for young adults like myself. I think there needs to be more of a priority with young adults, helping them get on the housing ladder as well, veterans on the streets. But I think where a lot of this anger is coming from is that we are put constantly on the back burner, whereas, say, asylum seekers, in this case, are put at the top of the list.
Yeah, I know. It doesn't seem right, does it? Absolutely ridiculous. So you're not holding out much hope for the new King of the North then, Andy Burnham, to save us all and go, yeah, I'm from the North. I've come to save you because I'm the man that does everything like a nice man because I'm from the North.
No. No, I don't think so. I think we need something new. I've seen on Twitter as well, not sure if you've seen like all the AI songs about Andy Burnham's coming to save us. I don't think he's coming to save us. I think we need a new government. That's what's going to save us, not the Labour government.
Yeah. Now, I'm going to play you something. I don't know whether you've seen this. You might have seen it, but it's quite funny. And I'm going to talk to Ellie Hodges about it as well. This is a woman. This is number 9. Elena. This is a woman who went out on a date with a bloke. It turns out he voted for reform.
I've seen this.
Have you seen it? Hey, I'll check this out.
A date at 7 p.m. It is now 7:20 and I'm on my way home because they are a reform voter. Took me about 10 minutes to figure it out, but once I did, I wasn't staying. He was offended when I was checking if he was straight. As a bisexual, I was making sure. And he was also referred to me as a female who, just checking he's not following me. He said that originally Reform had good intentions and now they just have to reject some other parties. So they're the ones that have ruined Reform, when before it had good intentions. I pointed out that it had always been bigoted and racist and misogynistic and homophobic, and he said no. And I said yes. He wanted me to be more tolerant. and that I should be more tolerant and I should be open to a discussion. I said I was not open to a discussion on racism, homophobia with someone who sits on the wrong side of that, and that there is a right and a wrong in this situation, and he was wrong. Didn't need to be tolerant to homophobia, racism, misogyny, etc. And then I nipped my pint and I left. So he did also start the conversation by saying he only ever ends up on dates with weird, not like kooky weird, which is always the first red flag. And apparently his ex is a narcissist. Don't think so, honey. I think you're the narcissist. Well, not even, because I think you've got to be smart to be one of those. Unfortunately, the bar was very close to where I live.
You do worry, don't you, Anna, that the human race will actually stop reproducing if there are people like that wandering about. You know, she managed to obviously eat all the pies before she left the bar. But I don't know. I mean, why does she keep looking behind her to see whether he's following her?
No, I know, I noticed that, and I think this is what's happening in this country as well, that you can't just have a conversation with someone that you disagree with politically. And
Right.
I remember I saw this video going around on Twitter and throwing around the terms like racist, homophobic. I think she called him a narcissist as well, I'm pretty sure. And I think it just shows what you can't just be open to hearing the other side without just calling it like these labels like racist and homophobic.
Yeah, I know. It's absolutely extraordinary. Ellie Hodges is here. Ellie, very good morning to you.
Good morning.
She actually drew my attention to this video yesterday, and because I mean, a couple of friends of mine have said this in the past, and I'm not going to name them because they might not want me to, but you know, journalists who, you know, conservative journalists, shall we say, and this woman said to me, you know, I used to go on these dating websites, and as soon as I said I was a conservative, people would just shun me and they wouldn't like ask me out. And she was like, you know, so now I have to pretend I'm not a conservative just to get a date.
That's
I mean,
ridiculous.
is that what it's like?
That is ridiculous though, because imagine actually being a man and you're trying to find yourself a girlfriend and you're limiting yourself only to left-wing women. I mean, that's ridiculous. And we know that left-wing women aren't usually the most attractive anyway.
Well, I mean, she's a pretty good example of, if she's an example of a left-wing woman, I'm sorry.
It's just so pathetic, and it's the way she's going, is he behind me? Is he behind me? Just because he said that he supports reform in the UK, which is literally at the top of the polls. Does she think that every single man that supports reform is going to be out to get her?
I know.
It's just pathetic.
It's shocking. I mean, have you had, I mean, again, without wishing to be too personal, have you had trouble with getting dates with people because they consider you to be right-wing? I mean, is that a problem for you?
It hasn't been before. I think as well with... I think those on the left, they immediately, exactly like what Ellie was saying, right? That Reform is one of the most popular parties in this country as well. But the fact that if you vote for Reform, that just immediately characterise you as racist, homophobic. You know, some of my male friends as well, they've had this struggle where they vote right-wing, but they feel like they can't actually tell if they're going on a date, they meet someone on Hinge, say, and they find out the woman's left wing, they feel like they can't actually say what they vote for because they're otherwise it's going to cause a lot of backlash. But I think for men, especially like on the dating market, it's so much harder than for women. So they feel like can't even say what they vote
also,
for.
Amongst gay people as well, Reform is the most popular party.
Right.
So I don't really know how it can be homophobic.
No, I know.
That doesn't really
I know,
make
it's bizarre, isn't it? Very strange. Anyway, listen, Anna, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed. See you soon. We've got to talk about CPAC, which is coming up soon, which we'll do very shortly. We're doing CPAC, by the way, which is coming up in July, where I'm still trying to work it out, because I thought I was making a speech, but it turns out I might just be on a panel. I'm not really sure. But I'm trying to get them to tell me one way or another. But we'll be covering it. There'll be all sorts of people there from America. Nigel Farage is going to be speaking. Lady Cunningham is going to be there. Lots and lots of really interesting people to talk to and to be with. Ellie, forgive us for a second. We're just going to do a little bit of news and then we'll come back to carry on with our conversation. It's coming up to about nearly 3 minutes past 9. Let's get some news with Edward Hughes.
Good morning, I'm Edward Hughes. In politics, Labour leadership frontrunner Andy Burnham delivered a major speech outlining plans for radical devolution. He pledged a No 10 North nerve centre in Manchester to rebalance power away from Westminster, drive regional growth, tackle the lost generation of NEETs by empowering mayors and deliver the biggest shift in decision-making in modern times. Cricket fans are mourning England captain Ben Stokes's shock retirement from international Test cricket, citing exhaustion and strained relations. The Princess of Wales completed the Three Peaks Challenge in 24 hours for charity, signalling strong recovery. Resident doctors have accepted a pay deal, ending strikes. Record June heat continues to grip parts of the UK, with calls for action on extreme weather. Other notes include asylum process reforms and ongoing economic debates. Later's Tigers.
Good to see Edward Hughes in a suit. He was a bit carried away yesterday with the old weather. He was wearing a Hawaiian shirt, which I'm not keen on if he's going to be doing the news. Ellie Hodges is here. We're going to be talking about Andy Burnham in a moment. We've got a couple of super chats. Shall we do those? Or have I jumped the gun? Oh, there we go. One from Roy Boy. I'm a proud northerner, and the last thing we need is a mass of the liberal elite from the south invading us. Well, this is his idea about number 10 in the north, isn't it? Baby Buzzy says, greetings from Canada. Thank you for keeping the reporting real and holding the media and government accountable. Well, we do try. Congratulations on Canada getting through to the next round, the final 16, I think, of the World Cup. Chris says, hey up, Mike and the crew. Your northern correspondent from top of the hill in Halifax. They've been out with Spocker at or 600. If you can't laugh at yourself... Oh, hang on, that was a bit quick. Oh, we haven't finished it yet.
Oh, sorry.
Later.
I'm so excited.
Goodness me, so excited. If you can't laugh at yourself, what can you do? See that soon. Because I started the show singing You'll Never Walk Alone. Because it was like, you know, that speech you made yesterday, you might as well have sung You'll Never Walk Alone. You know, hope.
So ridiculous.
It's all about hope. You know, people are already calling him the Timu Barack Obama. Have a look at this, though. This is Andy Burnham talking yesterday. Don't put gravy on your chips. This is Andy Burnham talking about what he's going to do about housing. Check this out.
Has lost almost 1.5 million council homes since the 1980s, and around the same number of people are now on housing waiting lists and have been there for a very long time. As a result, the country is in a housing trap. We are forced to chase rents in the private rented sector through the benefits system. When governments try to control these costs by freezing local housing allowance, it makes families homeless and places unfunded pressures on councils when they have to pay for temporary accommodation. Britain's housing crisis is having a ruinous impact on its public finances. So, working with local areas, Number 10 North will oversee the biggest council house building programme since the post-war period.
Number 10 North. I mean, it already sounds ludicrous, doesn't it? Absolutely hopeless. Ellie, I mean, people said, oh, Andy Burnham, very charismatic guy, good speaker, much different to Keir Starmer. His speech was awful yesterday, I thought. It's absolute rubbish.
Well, I think that his speech, although I have to give it to him that he is a good speaker, and I think that he's much better than... Some of it might just be because Keir Starmer had zero charisma whatsoever, that even if Andy Burnham has a tiny bit, it makes it look like he's in abundance of it. But I thought what was really interesting about his speech is that all he really spoke about was hope and how he wants hope in people's hearts. You can't, run a country on hope. And I think it was like a 25-minute speech, and he didn't mention the three things which I would say are the most important to people in this country. You have energy, you have immigration, and you have the benefits bill. And he briefly mentioned benefits there, but that's it.
And crime as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Which he didn't talk about either.
And he didn't seem to speak about that at all. Instead, it's all about the vibes again. That's all it seems to be with Andy Burnham. No one really knows what he believes in still. And by now, we should kind of get a feel of who's his chancellor going to be. But he's deliberately being so vague when it comes to
and
this
he wouldn't
stuff.
take any questions, right? Which I think is a really bad sign. And he banned a couple of journalists from even attending the speech. Quentin Letts, who's a great sketch writer for the Daily Mail, who's a very smart guy, and who wrote a sketch anyway because of course he just watched it from somewhere else. But not to let him in just seems to me to be a very bad indication of how, if he is going to be the Prime Minister, he's going to run a government.
Exactly, and I mean, not letting people have journalists asking questions is absolutely bizarre. I mean, even Keir Starmer did that, come on now. But I think the reason that he did that is because he had, from what I could see from his speech, he made all the journalists not sit on the front row like they usually do. They sat above him. Right. So all the people that were in the seats in front of him were his supporters or his staff. So he had, throughout all of his speech, people clapping as soon as he said anything.
Which is never a good
He
look.
made a little joke and everyone's laughing.
Right. Well, as soon as he said, we're going to bring number 10 North into Manchester, they all started clapping again. What are you clapping for? Because all that's going to happen is that they're going to double the number of people that they're going to have to hire to run the number 10 office, if you like. Because the one thing Devolution has done over the course of years, whether you like it or not, is that it's created massive numbers of civil servants, massive budgets that have to be spent on local government in Wales and in Scotland and Northern Ireland. And we haven't got any money.
No, exactly. And I thought it was really funny, actually. I looked at the Mirror this morning online, and they had done a poll asking its readers whether they think there should be a number 10 in the North. And even Mirror readers, I think it was 65% said no, there's no point in it.
Because what's the point? Because one of the things, I did a tweet yesterday, because one of the things that he said was, this is not just about bringing power to the North and Manchester, it's about redistributing it. So we're going to redistribute it to the Midlands, to the South West, to Humberside and London. So what? So you're moving out of London to give power back to London, which it's already got. It's like insane.
And I think that everyone knows when he is talking about all these amazing things that he's going to do, where is that money coming from? He did not mention at all where any of this money is coming from. And we all know it's going to be coming from southern middle-class families, and they always go for the middle. That's always what happens with left-wing governments, and that's exactly what's going to happen again. And he keeps mentioning this, he needs 10 years. He has a 10-year plan. This country does not have the patience to wait 10 years, and also he's not going to get 10 years. He's going to be needing to call a general election in spring 2029 anyway. He's going to have to show that he's at least done something by the time it gets to then. People are not going to want 10 years of Andy Burnham.
No, but let's face it, the last person that said he was going to have 10 years was Keir Starmer. It was only about a month ago where he was giving an interview saying that, not only am I going to stand in the next election, but I'm going to fight the one after that. And I have a 10-year plan. And then he was going to fight everybody that was going to take him on. He was going to never give up. He was going to stay exactly where he was because he was elected to make change for Britain. And then suddenly he was gone. And you kind of go, he only lost 10 minutes, never mind 10 years.
I think it's because the British public's patience is running very, very thin now, and they want to see change happen quickly. And I know that that's quite hard to do, but it's got to a point where something needs to change, and something needs to change quickly. And on a lot of issues, if they really, really wanted to change things, they could. For example, immigration. That can very easily be sorted. People act like it's an extremely complex issue. It's not. There's lots of quick solutions to it. But Andy Burnham didn't even think of mentioning immigration in his speech.
Because the view is of Andy Burnham that because he comes from sort of the left of the party, that he's not likely to want to get harder on immigration. He's going to get softer. And we already know that they've watered down what Shabana Mahmood said she wanted to do, which was to make it more difficult for people to get leave to remain if they came here illegally. It now turns out that it's going to be easier for them to get leave to remain if they come illegally. And then now we've also got this ludicrous, crazy idea that she's got that we should bring more bloody refugees in. And it's like, we don't really, this is not the time to say we want more refugees.
It's just really not the time. We need to kind of sense the mood of the country here. But I think with Andy Burnham's speech, it was very clear that was not a speech to the people, I would say. That was a speech to the Parliamentary Labour Party and his staff. That's the mood that I got anyway. And another reason why he doesn't want to call, well, there's not going to be a leadership race, we know that now, but it's because he would have to move even more left because the Labour members are still very, very left-wing. But it'll be really interesting to see who he picks as his chancellor as
Do you
well.
not think there's any chance that somebody will pop up, whether it's Al Khan's or somebody who's not quite... I mean, he's obviously bought off Wes Streeting. He's obviously bought off, any other kind of challengers that might have thought about having a go. Darren Jones has said he's not going to do it now. But Al Khan's still kind of wavering. Is there any chance that he might do it?
I think Al Khan's would actually be quite a good leader for the Labour Party.
I'm not sure about that, but I would. I mean, what
he's not very left wing, but
I'd just like to see somebody challenging him so that there is at least the pretense that there's some kind of competition. There's some kind of contest, because without that, it just doesn't seem right to me that this guy who fancies being, Prime Minister can just go. It's a bit like you going, I quite fancy being Prime Minister. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to ring up somebody in the Labour Party. I'm going to get them to give me a safe seat, and then when I get elected, I'm going to become Prime Minister.
Exactly. And when you actually put things into perspective and you think about it, Andy Burnham has quite literally just become an MP only a few weeks ago, and is now just going to be the next Prime Minister. That's it. Simple as. And no one seems to be really thinking, What on earth is happening?
I find it horrendous. I think it's the worst development, I think, in our modern political history.
And in his speeches, he keeps going on and on about how much he loves Manchester. It's so great.
Yeah. Manchester isn't great,
Keep being
by the way.
mayor of Manchester then. If you love it so much, put all of your energy into Manchester.
I mean, again, that's what he said. He said he was going to do that. He said he was going to stay for the full term. He was not going to leave. It was the greatest job he'd ever had. You know, and the problem is now that we're now so used to politicians just lying through their teeth that people don't even care anymore. What's this one? He's trying to split up England now, set the north against the south.
That's the problem as well. That is the problem, because he's gone so much. I understand what his campaign team are trying to get him to do in focusing on the north. But the problem is now there might be a lot of people down south that actually quite like Andy Burnham, and they're listening to his speeches and thinking, okay, well, what are you going to do for me? All you're talking about is the north and Manchester and how great that is.
But there's
what about
people
me?
in the north of England as well who have been sending in messages to us for the last couple of days saying, you know, I live in Leeds or I live in Newcastle or I live in Humberside. You know, he's not speaking for us. He's only talking about Manchester, as if Manchester is the only place in the north of England. It's ridiculous.
And there are deprived communities as well in the south. He's acting as if there's only deprived communities in the north. Yeah. And I understand
there's
why he's
deprived communities
done it,
in Essex, in Kent, in Sussex, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But I think that he's just gone a step too far with this whole I'm the king of the north thing, the number 10 in the north. It's just a ridiculous idea.
It really is.
It sounds great on paper. I'm sure when they all sat there around the table thinking about some ideas, it sounded amazing. But in practice, it's not going to work. He said he's going to be spending 1 day a week there, and then he's also not going to move into Downing Street. He's actually still going to live in the north. So is he going to be getting the train every single day? I'm not sure how that's going to work.
And is the BBC going to follow him in a chopper every time? The Prime Minister's on the train. I mean, good luck to him if he's going to use the train that often, because a lot of the times it won't be running, or it'll stop somewhere and he'll have to get off and get a replacement bus service. Unbelievable. Ellie, great to see you. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks for having me on.
Good to see you. What you got? You got anything going on this week? What are you up to?
I have no idea. My weeks are so unpredictable.
Are they?
We'll see.
All right. Okay, great. Well, listen, good to see you.
Good to see you.
Thank you very much for popping in. We're going to talk now to Mr. Loophole, who is, of course, our favourite lawyer. He's a man called Nick Freeman, who has got lots of things to say, no doubt, about the North. Because, I mean, I think I'm right in saying, Nick, I know that you spent some time in France, but you also spent some time here. And you are up to North, aren't you, a little bit?
I'm sorry I'm not in today, but I'm in solidarity with Burnham, and I decided to stay up north. Is that all?
I mean, it's pathetic, isn't it? You know, because this whole. I mean, I'm calling him a sort of parody northerner because he's doing this thing where he's like, I'm really friendly, because I'm not like them people down in London where they're all rude and terrible and everything's really expensive. And you come north, it'd be lovely. And it's like, shut up! You're talking absolute cobblers, mate.
It's a substitute for a lack of ideas. At the moment, talking to two groups, one on the left of the party and one on the right or centre of the party. He doesn't even know which way he's going to go, and that's his problem. And he's trying to work out: am I going to go with Rayner and Miliband, or am I going to go more streeting and keep it a bit more sensible and actually try and keep in line with what I've always said was that our best hope as a country for Labour was Starmer and Reeves. And I know that sounds absolutely, but I maintain they are the best for the country, and Labour will really rue the day that they've got rid of Starmer. He did have a...
Yeah, I mean, you may be right that things will get worse, and I think they probably will. But, I mean, Starmer had to go, surely. I mean, the problem with Starmer was that he couldn't do any of the things that he said he was going to do. The things he said he wasn't going to do, he ended up doing. And he just was sort of revealed to be a man who couldn't keep his word in the end, wasn't he?
I agree with everything you've said, but notwithstanding that, I bet you, if we're having a conversation, you'll say, I wish we had Starmer and Reeves there. Because this guy is going to, certainly if he goes with, can you imagine Miliband as Chancellor of the Exchequer? That will be the Liz Truss moment, and that really will be the end financially, economically for this country. And it will then take us years and years and years to recover. The years is, one, he hasn't got any policies at the moment. He doesn't know which way he's going to go. And secondly, when he decides what his policies are, what actually he believes in, he needs to work out with his team how he's going to achieve that and then win the next election. And both those things are completely impossible, and it's just not going to happen. So he sounds okay, looks okay, is from up north, and that's got a warmth and an appeal to it, a nice cuddly man. but he will be outed very soon, because the moment he's exposed to questions, the moment he's being cross-examined about what his policies are and how he's going to achieve it, and facts are going to be pointed out to him, he's going to then be exposed for who he really is, which is basically a vacuum who just all he wants. It's a little bit like Victoria Beckham. She wanted to be the most famous woman in the world, and she's not far off it. Good luck to her. But at least she had some talent. She had something about her. Burnham's got nothing other than the fact up north. I mean, can you imagine being beaten in a leadership challenge by Corbyn and by Miliband, and now you are leader with he will be leader. I just hope Al Cairns does challenge him, so at least he can be questioned about his policies. But how can we have such a political failure trying to... What is anyone thinking about when you have someone who's never had a job, he's a total failure in politics, he's been in politics most of his life. How is he on earth, when he won't even tell us what he believes in, other than I'm going to duplicate all the current layers of bureaucracy and I'm going to move it up north? You know, how's that going to achieve anything? It's nothing. It's meaningless nonsense.
It is. But doesn't it bother you, Nick, as a lawyer, at least, and not necessarily a constitutional one, but to have this kind of power grab, which seems to have been so easy for him to do, without any sort of policy document, without any kind of voting procedure, really? Yes, he won the by-election and he became an MP, but the idea for me that he's become the leader, or will become the leader of Great Britain, without as much as a sort of a by your leave, I just find quite distasteful, really.
Well, it's not democratic. I think it's a litmus test for how broken the politics is in this country, not just with the politicians, but the actual system. I mean, you just need to look at question time, don't you? And you need to look at when certainly Starmer was asked questions, particularly in relation to Mandelson, how he ducked and dived, and there are no consequences. And my view is, you know, question time, and I know we're just diverting a little bit, but question time, the speaker should be like a judge in the High Court. Mr. Starmer, you've been asked a question, answer it. You know, one or two, right, sorry, take him down for contempt. We need accountability and responsibility. Politics should not be a game. And what we have now is career politicians with their noses in the trough, just trying to look after their own interests, devoid of any actual practical acumen, any business acumen. And, you know, it can't happen, it can't work. So I think the law needs to be changed, and we need to have businessmen, as Farage advocates, who you pay them £1 million a year to run. I mean, James Murray, he's running the National Health. I'm sure he's a very nice, intelligent man. It's the third largest institution in the world. I don't believe he's ever had a proper job or run his own business. What chance has that man got? And he's only going to have it for a short time. It just doesn't work. So we need to bring in experts, you know, lawyers to run the Justice Department, lawyers to run the court, doctors who understand how the medical system works. We need experts, pay them properly, and at least then we have people in power who actually understand the system, rather than just playing at politics with people who are absolutely clueless and just throw billions of pounds away all the time.
It's a problem, isn't it? I mean, we talk about the justice system all the time. And I mean, this week we learned that the government's going to let out more prisoners from prison over the course of the next year. Quite dangerous criminals, because there's basically no room to put anybody else in the prisons. We've also got, I think, 20,000 foreign criminals who've been released from prison who should have been deported, who are now not going to be deported because they've managed to convince the government that they didn't know they were coming here. We've got the new Sentencing Act coming in, which is likely to make things even worse. What's going on?
Well, it's literally, instead of, we used to have a mantra, let's lock them up. Do you remember the short, sharp shock? Let's give people a lesson they'll remember, and that will act as a deterrent. We now have this, so for a sentence, a prison sentence, if you got a 12-month sentence, it was immediate, unless there were exceptional circumstances. You now have this bizarre situation where to get 12 months, you've got to do something pretty serious, but it will automatically be suspended unless there are exceptional circumstances for it not being suspended. So what does that mean? It means basically, provided you don't breach that suspension, nothing happens to you, no punishment. It's a complete let-off. We're now increasing the suspended sentence to 3 years. So sentences can now be extended to 3 years and it be suspended. So you imagine doing something that warrants a 3-year sentence, and we're actually going to suspend it, so nothing will happen to you, and as long as you're a good person for 3 years, you're fine, you're okay. So what we're trying to do is let's empty the prisons, and the policy behind it, I understand, is we're short on money, we're short of prison places, and we need to lock up the most violent and deadly criminals. That's fine, but we're letting out people who fall into that category. We're also allowing the new system will allow judges to defer sentence, so for 12 months instead of 6. And to give you an idea of the way the sentencing structure is being cannibalized, if you were currently receiving a sentence of a prison of, say, 3 years, that sentence you would do, say, 50% of it. You're now going to do a third. If you were going to receive a sentence where you would be released or eligible for parole after 2/3, it's now reduced to 50%. So the whole thing is thousands and thousands of people will be released. It's going to operate retrospectively. So although it comes in September, it will operate retrospectively. So it will count to people serving sentences now. And we're basically just going to empty our prisons and save them. Arguably, it's a new thought policy, biggest change for many, many years. Just lock up the most dangerous and threatening criminals, and let's deal with other criminals in a more holistic way. Let's give them community penalties, etc., etc. And time again, that's been shown not to work. But we're in a situation where we don't have the places, so we don't.
Not just build? I mean, I know it sounds ridiculously obvious, but why can we not just build more prisons, for heaven's sake?
Yeah, well, yeah, I love, and your listeners may hate what I'm about to say, but you probably remember the pictures of that prison in South America where people are literally chained up, heavily tattooed. And you think, well, I wouldn't want to spend my day like that. And if our prisons, if we had 2 or 3 prisons like that for the most dangerous criminals, I think it would operate very quickly. First of all, as a deterrent, and I think once in there, they'd never want to come back. And then you can use the rest of prison because there are a lot of fraudsters around. There's a lot of scammers. We don't want to live in a society which is rich with crime. And what we're seeing now is the motorists who are criminalised, and they're punished more than the actual criminals. And to me, that's just bizarre, because most motorists are actually sensible, reasonable people who make by and large, minor transgressions. But we're criminalising the road traffic movement, and we're decriminalising offences like shoplifting, minor assault, sexual offences. It's just, you can't believe it. You know, if you spoke to your parents or my parents about it and said, this is what's happening, they say, no, you're teasing me. This is a joke. What date is it today? It just doesn't make sense. And that's the problem. Nothing that happens now makes sense.
It doesn't, because I mean, I've had these conversations this week because of facial recognition cameras that are being introduced into cities around the country, particularly in London. And my argument about, for example, the ANPR cameras that record you speeding, doing 23 in a 20, or 43 in a 40, or whatever it is. They tend to catch the law-abiding people of the country. They don't catch the criminals, because the criminals don't care. If you're driving an illegal car that you've either stolen or is uninsured, and if you get a ticket, you're not going to pay it. Whereas if I get one, I have to pay it. And the same goes for facial recognition. If I'm wearing a balaclava, or I'm wearing a crash helmet, or I'm wearing a burqa and I'm walking down the street committing some kind of crime, they're not going to get me. But if I'm not doing that, then they are going to get me.
And look, one in 15 drivers have Joey number plates. These are number plates that cannot be picked up by the cameras. So the criminals who are driving these cars, or the people who just are, persistent speeders, drive dangerously, there's you see them on the roads, a massive number of people who drive these cars with the numbers on. And I would encourage your listeners to get their passenger to take a picture of the number plate and report it to the authorities, because that potentially they're trying to pervert the course of justice. That's at the very minimum, the very least. And far more likely, they're probably carrying stolen items. They might be carrying guns. They're up to no good. Why would they try and conceal their identity? And of course, because we have no police on our roads, they're largely untouchable. And so you're absolutely right, Mike. It's the people like you and I, who we like to think ourselves as law-abiding citizens, like most of your listeners, who we stump up, we're easy prey, it's fiscally inspired, and we're the ones propping the economy up.
Yeah, I know. Shocking. Now, I don't know whether you know about the Pooch situation. I'm about to ask you about something that happened to him with regard to driving, right? And if you haven't heard, this is one of the most terrifying stories you will ever hear. when we started this business, we've got a place in London. He lives in Surrey, and so he decided to drive in every day. But he drove in his daughter was working in Australia, right? So he used her old car, which was not compliant for ULEZ, right? So he decided to sign up to the auto pay system on ULEZ, right? So he came in literally for about 2 months or something like that, and thought that every time he drove into London, he was paying automatically the ULEZ because it was, supposedly an auto pay system. It turns out that his daughter, they moved house, right? His daughter did not re-register her car at the new house. It turned out that he wasn't actually automatically paying because there are two auto pay systems. One is an auto pay which you automatically pay every time you cross the line. The second one is what they call auto pay manual, which is what he had inadvertently signed up to, which means that you actually have to sign in every time you use it, right? So he's got about 40 fines, which all went to the old address, which he didn't see. So he's now got 40 fines of something like £220 each. So he's now got a bill of something like 12 grand to pay to TfL because of the fact that all of those things went wrong. Now, I don't know what you do about that. I mean, he says he's going to fight it. What can you do?
I'm afraid I don't think it's good news for him. Obviously, it's his failing and his daughter's failing, and the responsibility lies with the driver to make sure, first of all, the car's registered at the address that you live, and secondly, if you're going through a congestion zone or something like that, it's your responsibility to pay. If there was a fault with the system and not through his own making, then absolutely he's got a cause of action. But from what you've told me, I'm afraid, because the alternative is to say, well, look, we're going to allow you to have come in free on those days. Look, it might be worth an email, it might be worth a telephone call saying, look, if I pay all the congestion charges, would you please exercise your discretion because this is what's happened? But, knowing TfL as I do, I think it's very likely that I'm afraid it's...
I mean, I had a similar situation, but to a much lesser extent when I changed cars, right? And I was signed into TfL, but obviously I changed cars at a different registration. And because you sometimes forget to pay it, I got about 3 or 4 fines. And I went back to them and I said, look, I'm really sorry. I've forgotten I couldn't remember what my passwords were. And I said, I can't get in to change it. And they were actually quite good. And they said, I'll tell you what, just pay us the congestion charge and we'll drop the fine. So, but I mean, that was for maybe 100 quid as opposed to 12 grand.
Yeah, Pooch's is on an industrial scale, I'm afraid. And also, he should have been aware that money was not being deducted from his account. I mean,
I suppose.
Over a 2-month period, he's thinking, oh, Christ, this money's not going out. And he should think, and I'm sure he would, what's going on? There must be a mistake somewhere. So I'm afraid the driver's got to be proactive. It's worth a conversation, it's worth an email, it's worth getting down on your hands and knees and begging and saying, I'm so sorry. But I'm not hopeful, but if you don't ask, you don't get. So that would be my advice.
For them to give them the car or something, you take the car, for God's sake.
They reduce.
Good to talk. Thanks very much indeed. Nick Freeman there, who is, of course... But there's apparently no loophole. And if you heard that story about... I mean, it's just a nightmare. There are so many things that happen now. And life is so difficult for people, all the time. And so many times, I mean, I don't know about you, whenever I travel on the tube...
Oh, don't even get me started.
You see people just walking through the barriers, pushing their way through, and unless there's... I mean, I occasionally see... I mean, like I got on a bus yesterday, there were actually 2 police officers on, and I was like, that's interesting. And sometimes you do see people on the other side of the ticket barrier, like looking to prosecute anyone who's trying to push through without paying.
It's a rare
But
sight.
if they're not there... It's happening all the time.
Yeah, it's a rare
And you
sight.
feel stupid for paying, don't you?
You do. And it happens to me all the time, and it drives me insane. And people always comment, oh, it doesn't bother you, it doesn't bother you. It does, though, because when you go and buy your ticket and you're there putting your ticket through while other people are just walking through, it makes you feel like such an idiot.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, even the other day I saw someone, quite literally, where you scan your ticket, they actually stood on it and did a flip over.
Really?
And I said to the security working for the TfL,
they don't do anything, do they?
I said to them, well, what can we do? stop them.
You
Why
could
are you
stop them?
there?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. It's like, what is their job? Because they're saying they can't actually stop people who bunk the train.
Yeah.
I think I've seen once someone shout at someone when they went through, and that's
Yeah.
it. But then it just makes more people do it because they see people get away with it.
I actually grabbed a guy once, you know,
Really?
because I was in Borough Market. I'd had a couple of drinks, and I saw this guy coming through, and he was obviously. I don't want to say he was obviously a migrant, but he was obviously a migrant. And I just grabbed him and I was like, pay your bloody fare. And he sort of went to sort of come after me, and I was just like, I looked mad enough for him to leave me alone.
No, fair enough. I mean, I said to someone the other day, I was on the tube and they were on the phone call, they were on the phone on a call really loudly, and they were speaking in a different language. I said to them, I was like, are you from here? And they said, no. I said, oh, okay, we don't really like talk out loud here on our phones on public transport.
Good for you.
And they're like, okay. So, I mean,
And so did he stop?
Yeah, and then he stopped.
Right.
I think he probably carried on as soon as I got off the tube, though.
Yeah, but I think, you know, and it's good for you for doing it, because, I mean, it's quite a brave thing to do, but because I think the problem is so many of us and so many people in the city particularly just kind of put their head down and just kind of ignore it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I said this, one of the things that I said the other day is that, you know, we've lost that kind of, you know, almost just good manners that we used to have.
Just
I don't know if you saw that.
for other people.
Did you see that video the other day of the woman who was trying to walk up the stairs?
Yeah.
And there was a guy
like
wouldn't get out of the way, and she was like, she had a walking stick, and she was like, I just need some. And he's like, I'm just sitting here, you know. You just have to go around me.
That was heartbreaking.
And it was just horrific, right? I had a similar thing the other day where a woman gets on the train, on the tube, and she had a walking stick, and all the seats were taken. But the guy at the end, and in the seat that you're supposed to give up, was an Indian guy, and he didn't move. And I thought to myself, should I go up to him and go, would you mind getting out your bloody seat, mate? You know, to give her the seat. And I was sort of contemplating doing that, and then suddenly we got to the next stop, and he got up, and I said to her, "There's a seat there," and she was like, "Oh, thank you very much." But I just, you know, if I was sitting down and a woman got on with a stick who was clearly 75, 80 years old, you get up and say, "Would you like to sit down?"
Yeah.
Do you know what's really bad, right?
I have that video, Mike.
Oh, you have? Oh, let's have a look. Yeah, let's have a look at it.
What did you say?
I want to get up the stairs.
Can you not touch me, please?
Can you move, please?
Can you not? I'm recording you. Don't touch me.
That's fine.
I'm here relaxing.
Can you move?
You can go around.
I can't.
You can. You got legs.
I'm 80.
Okay. So. I'm recording you.
I don't give a damn what you're doing. You're extremely rude and arrogant.
I'm recording.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know why he thinks that's somehow funny or cool or anything.
It's the fact that people as well are walking past and seeing that he's doing that and not stepping in as well, and that's the problem, is that too many people just accept when this crazy kind of stuff happens. But I think just as a society now, it was quite sad. We've become quite soulless. So even on public transport on the tube this morning, I put out a tweet about it because it was just so sweet. So everyone's on the tube and everyone's on the way to work, you know, on their phones, headphones in. No one's interacting with each other. And then this little boy got on. He must have been around 6 or something, completely by himself.
Oh, really?
And he had like a really nice shirt on, and he came on with his Nokia. And his parents had obviously gave to him, and he was trying to phone his mum, but he was just looking around at everyone. And I just thought, it's so sad now as a society that we kind of all just get on public transport or we go somewhere and we all just sit on our phones and we don't talk to each other. And I think that young boy coming on and just looking around and being so intrigued by everyone really opened my eyes to that.
Yeah, I mean, you occasionally get something that warms the cockles of your heart. I mean, the thing that I find slightly troubling now is that I'll get on sometimes, I'll go to the gym and come out, I'll get into Bond Street, and I'll get on the train, and people, and a couple of times young women get up and go, would you like a seat? I'm like, I'm fine. What do you mean? Yeah, what do I look like? I'm old? Do I look like I'm that old? I mean, please.
I did that to someone once, and they said, I'm fine, I don't need a seat. Okay, all right, sorry.
I know, this is what happens to us all. Let's talk about a couple of other stories, though, since you're here, because NHS maternity units, right? We hear all the time, we've got a story today saying junior doctors are now going to be given yet more money. They're going to end up getting paid effectively now in excess of £100,000 a year, right? But we're told as well, in a piece in the Mail, that NHS maternity units are now literally not fit for purpose. And if you're a young woman about to have a child, or if you're, having your second child and your third child, it must be terrifying. I mean, I've sort of, I've had 4 kids. It's all in the past for me. But if I was now a young father saying, right, or father to be, now we have to go into this maternity unit, you'd be really worried about it, wouldn't you?
Yeah, you would be. And I think basically nothing in the NHS is working. I have a family member in hospital at the moment, and just seeing the state of the NHS...
It's awful, isn't it?
It's actually really, really sad. And you see on the weekends as well, they just completely stop. Nothing gets done at all.
Right.
And you have no idea what's going on. And everything is just so slow. Everything just takes so long to do.
Right.
And it's clear they don't have enough staff at all.
Right.
And they don't have enough resources. They have nothing.
Right.
And they're being
overstretched. And yet they have £200 billion a year from the government.
And this is what drives me insane.
What are they doing with it?
This is actually what drives me insane when people always go, just give the NHS more money. They just need more money. No, they don't. There needs to be a complete restructure of the NHS because it's not fit for purpose and it's not working at the moment. But the problem is the minute you criticise the NHS and you say, oh God, it's not the best at this, it's not the best at that, people jump down your throats and get so angry at you.
Yeah.
I go, well, we should be so proud of the NHS. The NHS is one of the best things this country's ever created, blah, blah, blah. So, okay, fine, but we should be able to criticise it, because it's not perfect at all. Same with a lot of our institutions. We should always be allowed to criticise it. And when people say it's free, it's not free. People pay for it when they pay for tax.
Of course it is.
When they pay their tax.
Well, 25% of your income tax goes to fund the NHS.
Exactly.
25%.
So when people see, and I don't think that people would actually mind paying more tax if they saw that our public services were actually working and that they were just not even good, just actually decent and worked. I don't think people would mind. But when people see so much money coming out every single month and going towards things that they see not fit for purpose and not working, which is, I think, is a completely fair conclusion when you look at the state of the NHS.
I know, absolutely shocking. We're going to talk to William Yarwood. William Yarwood, of course, who is the head of campaigns at Taxpayer Alliance. I just went on his Twitter account to see what he's been saying. And there's an interview with you on it.
Yes,
talking
there
to him about what life in general. But he was very active yesterday when Andy Burnham got up and made his speech up to North to talk about how we're going to have number 10 of the North and Andy Burnham of the North. Do you know how they call it the High North? And they keep talking about, the Greenland situation. I mean, it's like that now. It's like we have to have North into everything, Absolutely bloody ridiculous. William.
Morning, Mike. It's been a while. Oh, sorry, mate. 1 second, mate. For some reason, I can't hear
you. Can you hear me or not?
I can hear you now. There we are. We're back. We're back.
Top man.
This is what happens when I come down the line and not in studio, mate. Sorry, it's been a while. My life's been a bit all over the place. I'll tell you about it next time.
Where have you been? I haven't seen you for weeks.
Yeah, so actually, I've not been living in my usual pad in Wimbledon. As you can tell, I'm in the office right now, so there's not my bed and my usual wardrobe and stuff behind me. But I've been living not in Wimbledon at the moment because I've been having works done to the flat, which is fine, but it meant I had to move out. So, and I just meant I couldn't
rented it to to Novak Djokovic or something, have you?
no, I haven't. I haven't, I'm afraid. But no, nice to talk to you again, man. It's been a while.
Yeah, absolutely right. This Manchesterism thing is annoying me, as you can imagine, right? And the whole north of England thing is annoying me, and Andy Burnham's annoying me. And I've already decided, Pooch actually put me up to this yesterday, that I now hate Andy Burnham more than I hated Keir Starmer. It took me 2 years to get him out, and now I don't want him back, because people have said, oh, after a while you'll want Starmer back. I don't want Starmer back. But Burnham's going to be worse, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, the fact that we're getting Starmer nostalgia already says something. And in some ways, Andy Burnham's ruining music for me as well. I quite like the Starmers and I quite like the Smiths. He's ruining it for me. Did you see that video yesterday where he was like, that's a little Smiths lyric for you? He's like, oh, shut up, man. No one cares.
No, listen, no, we've got it. No, we've got it, I think. I think it's, Elaine, it's number 8, I think. Let's play that.
I left the north again, I travelled south again. Well, there's a bit of a Smiths lyric there for you, but I'm back in London after the speech, pleased with how number 10 North has gone down. What it'll mean in future is that everybody doesn't have to come down here to have a serious conversation with the government. If you think about it, a North Pole to the South Pole, it'll just make the country feel more balanced. I hope you're excited by it. I'm certainly excited by it. The whole idea is Number 10 North is a conduit to get power out into the country, every single part of it, and get growth going everywhere. So yeah, come on everyone, get on board with it, and let's make it happen. Good growth in every postcode, hope in every heart. That's our mission.
I started the show today with a chorus of "You'll Never Walk Alone," because you might as well have done that. You might as well have just started with "Hope in your heart and you'll never walk alone." Shut up.
It's so nauseating. I need to get a new accent, don't I? I can't do Keir Starmer on the show anymore. I need to do Andy.
Yeah. I mean, your Starmer was so good. You're gonna have to get a Burnham one going.
Yeah. Andy, such an ordinary bloke, you know. But yeah, no. This to get to the meat of the matter. Manchesterism, Mike, is just tax and spend with a northern accent. That's all it is. That's basically all it is. And I don't see how putting a regional label on a stale old policy and policy platform is going to suddenly magically revive the country or do anything differently. And also this Number 10 North thing, it's absolute, you know, I was swore there. What I was saying, bollocks. Why not? It's absolute bollocks. And I'll tell you why. Because that would mean certain parts of the state would have to move up to Manchester, up to North, which and also the incoming Prime Minister Burnham says he's going to live there. So we're going to have the first working from bed Prime Minister, working from bed Burnham. That's what we're going to have. That's what we're going to have. And also, in terms of his decentralisation plans, all he wants to do here is put more statutory obligations on councils and combined authorities and quangos, which means that essentially then they have to raise the taxes in order to fund those obligations. So Burnham can go, oh, well, I haven't raised taxes, guys. It's not my fault, Gov. So that's his sort of like sleight of hand, really, I think. Burnham doesn't want to raise taxes at the national level, although he might do, depending on who he picks as Chancellor. But nevertheless, I think what he wants to do is absolve himself of responsibility of doing anything, and therefore put all these obligations on local authorities and local quangos. Now, look, devolution in principle is not a bad idea. I don't think there's much issues having, decisions made close to people where they are. But the issue is, all these decisions are going to be made for, and all these decisions are going to be resulted in is just more taxes, more spending, and more borrowing. And last time I looked, Mike, there's the three things this country doesn't need any more of.
No, exactly right. I mean, my problem with devolution is that every single time you devolve power to any part of the country, whether it's Edinburgh or whether it's Cardiff or whether it's Belfast, is that it always costs a load of money. You know, I was in Scotland when they appointed when they built the Scottish Parliament, right? And it was so badly put together that the budget, I think, originally was 40 million quid, and it ended up costing 400 million quid because, amongst other things, they made a load of windows which didn't fit the space that the windows were supposed to be put into. They then hired 3,500 civil servants to operate down in a building in Leith so that they could support the various MSPs. And so, I mean, Emma Wolf actually was here yesterday, came up with quite a good idea. I said, you know, I wouldn't mind devolution if they then pared it back a bit in Westminster. So, for example, if you have, half the country in the north, say, for example, saying we're going to have devolved power and we're going to we're going to sort the north out from the north. Well, fine. Well, then you're not an MP anymore. Or if you are an MP, you don't come to London. We don't give you expenses. We don't pay your train fare. We don't let you buy a second home, and we then have a bit of return on our investment from a taxpayer's point of view. But if they just want to pile more free money onto the public sector, I don't think it's going to work.
No, I don't think it is going to work either. And you're absolutely correct. I think elements of devolution, especially in Scotland and Wales, have just created another managerial bureaucratic class to stick their noses in the taxpayers' trough. I mean, in Wales specifically, I mean, they extended the amount of assembly members, or NSs as they're now called, because it's no longer the assembly, it's now a Welsh Parliament, of course.
That's Senedd now, isn't it? Senedd, you have to call it.
And they increased the number of bloody people in the Welsh Parliament, which means now there's even more MSs being paid by Welsh taxpayers. How on earth is that good representation? How on earth is that good value for Welsh taxpayers? And look, if Burnham's plans do go ahead and he wants to devolve powers to Manchester, to the north, you know, he's gonna have number 10 England. You're gonna see another large bureaucratic class build up under Burnham, and that's what Burnham essentially believes in, because he believes in, you know, in many ways he's very similar to Starmer in this way. He kind of does believe in the process. He kind of does believe in, you know, bureaucracy taking things out of political hands. One thing I did notice from his speech, which I thought was very interesting indeed, he's almost against politics at all. He was talking about, oh, why do we have arguments? Why do we have debates? Why do we have division? Why can't we all just do things and get along? Well, sorry, politics is about division, you moron. Politics is exactly about that. Politics is about disagreeing with people and having arguments and having debates. Just because you're king of the North and no one would dare disagree with His Majesty, Andy Burnham. Well, I'm sorry, mate. People are going to disagree with you, and we at the Taxpayers Alliance are going to be holding this moron to account just as much as we have Keir Starmer.
Yeah, brilliant. I totally agree with you, because they don't get it, do they? They don't think that people disagree with them, because if you disagree with them, you must be either one, evil, or two, twisted, or some kind of, you know, maniac. Because they know what's best for everybody, because they know how to run the country. And this guy has had no success at anything he's ever done. You know, he started off as a member of the... I mean, who joins a political party when they're 15? That's what he did. He joined the Labour Party when he was 15, right? Because he was such a dweeb that you can't imagine that he had any friends or anything like that. He then becomes a special advisor to... Chris Smith, I think it was, in the 1997 Blair government, right? That was his first kind of job, having been an aide, I think, when he was at university. And he then becomes a minister, or an MP. He then becomes a minister. He then becomes, I think he ended up being Secretary of State for Culture, Media and Sport. But, you know, there's literally nothing in his career that you can say, oh, Andy Burnham did this. That was interesting, because if it hadn't been for Andy Burnham, this wouldn't have happened. There's nothing. It's literally like a blank sheet. And then he was Ed Miliband's kind of oppo, and then he was Jeremy Corbyn's oppo. I mean, he sits behind him. There's that. You remember that great clip of Jeremy Corbyn where he's in the House of Commons, and to his immediate left is Andy Burnham. I don't know if you remember this. You were probably not even born when this happened, but basically it's Jeremy Corbyn saying, "I went to Brussels, and you know what they said to me?" And the Tories all shouted in unison, "Who are you?" And Burnham sitting next to him. And I mean, that's about the most famous thing that's ever happened to him, you know. And you can't name... I mean, if I said to you, Ali, can you name one thing that Andy Burnham's famous for, apart from being from North?
The buses in Manchester.
The buses.
That is it.
Yeah, but he spent
£200
million.
That wasn't even him. That wasn't even him.
But he spent £200 million of taxpayers' money subsidising bus fares in Manchester. And I don't know if you've been to Manchester. I have. I've got a son that lives there, right? And the traffic is horrendous. It's worse than London. You get in a car, you get in an Uber, you can't go anywhere. You end up getting out of the Uber and walking because it's so bad.
Yeah, and also one interesting thing was actually Andy wanted to do a war on motorists. He wanted to try and do a ULEZ style scheme in Manchester. And now suddenly he did this video when he was running in Makerfield, and he was like, "Oh, I'm really glad this new sort of style ULEZ scheme is not coming." And it's like, what are you talking about, dude? You were one of its biggest proponents. The only reason you're saying this is in order to try and get reform voters to bloody well vote for you. Yeah. So I think Burnham is a charlatan, and you mentioned stuff he's achieved or not achieved. You know, also you are right. He is a blank sheet of paper, but that's also in regards to his political philosophy and his political thinking, right? There's the old joke, you know, a Brownite, a Milibandite, and a Corbynite walk into a room, and a Starmerite walk into a room, and the bartender says, you know, what can I get you, Andy? You know, he's exactly he is everything to everyone. And this whole Manchesterism gimmick, this whole devolution, this whole, you know, open every art and good growth in every postcode, you know, that is just bollocks rhetoric from a man who really doesn't have any political thinking behind him, no real intellectual heft, and is simply going to continue with the managed decline and the extreme tax and spend that we've been undergoing in this country for decades. And one interesting thing, Mike, is when he was talking in that speech yesterday and analysing the problems with this country, not one mention of immigration, not one mention of debt, not one mention of net zero, not one mentions of foreign policy. Like, how is this guy even remotely serious? Oh, we just need to have a state building housing programme and I need to live in the north. It's like, oh, great, brilliant. Bring the same, guys, bring the same.
And Ellie, is he gonna live in his house, the one that we saw him running out of with those horrible shorts on, or is he gonna create another kind of, like number 10 Downing Street mansion that he gets to live in?
Manchester version.
Manchester mansion.
No, I think he's going
worth
to
about
live
£2.5.
Yeah.
I think he's going to live in the house that he lives in at the moment and make the journey to London every single day, which is
he says he's only going to come to London like 2 days a week or something.
Oh my God,
right?
Ridiculous.
So he won't be here. Work from bed, Burnham. That's what we're getting. But yeah, he's just going to create another bureaucratic managerial class where he is, and he's going to see, and he's proposing this as somewhat a way of he's going to be connecting with the North. Well, if he wanted to stay in the North, why did he bloody run to be an MP then? Maybe he should have stayed as Greater Manchester mayor and not causing an unnecessary by-election.
Well, he told us that he wanted to be the mayor of Manchester for the full term because it's such a great job. It's the greatest job he'd ever had, and he's chucked that. What about the idea that is sort of the mastermind behind the new Burnham sort of, premiership is Louise Haigh, the woman who was done for fraud because she couldn't stop having her phone stolen and reporting it stolen even when it wasn't stolen.
Yeah, if Louise Haigh is the mastermind behind Andy Burnham, we really are screwed, aren't we? I mean, for crying out loud, I mean, also the interesting thing is also now Streeting's thrown his weight. Well, he's quite a skinny guy, but nevertheless, his weight behind Andy Burnham, meaning that this is just going to be a coronation. What happened to the so-called, we need debate in the Labour Party and we need discussion, but of course, our Andy, His Majesty himself doesn't like having people have discussion. He doesn't like people having debates. He thinks everyone should just agree and we should just do things. Which, when it comes to that, I mean, we should do whatever Andy Burnham says we should do. Yeah. That's all he is. So I think when our Andy walks into number 10 in a few weeks' time, I don't think that we're going to see any real difference in this country. The tax burden is not going to go down. The debt is not going to be taken seriously. Public services are not going to be reformed. Net zero isn't going to be abolished. And a variety of things that are destroying this country under Keir Starmer and were destroying the country under the last Conservative government are not going to change. I think this guy, behind his regional accent, behind his sort of weird rock stardom, he's essentially a conventional tax and spend politician who uses his regional accent and, wears his T-shirt with a jacket on his bumblebee badge to look normal. But he's anything but normal. He's just another career politician who wants to take more of your money.
Yeah, maybe he's going to take Downing Street and turn it into a sort of the hacienda of London. The kind of what's the gay district of Manchester known as? I can't remember, but
is that just Manchester?
And put Angela Rayner behind the front door. On the decks. Doing a bit of a Ibiza thing. I like a bit of a
our Andy on the decks.
Yeah. Oh my God, what a nightmare! And here's one for you. The final sort of ignominy for old Keir Starmer. Did you see at the weekend he came out and he said, "I quite fancy being Secretary General of NATO," after completely stripping bare the defences of Britain, where we've literally got no boats, no army, no soldiers, no planes. And in fact, only enough drones to last about a week if we get attacked by anyone. And he now wants to run NATO.
Yeah, that's rather interesting, although maybe the job would suit him quite well because all people do in NATO is just send people strongly worded letters about how displeased they are with things. So I think that maybe the job would suit Keir Starmer quite well. But yeah, that's just classic. This guy just got to fall upwards. He's going to be like, I'm. Let me be clear. I'm now on the international stage. I'm General Secretary of NATO. But yeah, he's got no experience. He's got no background in defence at all. He has no military experience. He's treated the armed forces very badly, including our Northern Irish veterans. Let's not forget that point. And also this new defence investment plan, which I believe is being announced in the Commons this afternoon, which will be a farce. All of the Defence front bench resigned over it because it wasn't good enough. It's not what they were promised. And what did he say about John Healey? John Healey was asking for more money for the Defence Forces.
Right.
Like, that's not a bad thing inherently.
Right.
And Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves was like, no, I think we should spend more money on net zero and foreign aid, actually. And I think we should spend more money on welfare, because these guys always choose social security and welfare and their own pet political projects over the defence of the nation.
I know, bloody awful. It's fantastic to have you back, William. I mean, whatever you've been doing, you've obviously been seeking great inspiration, because you've been brilliant, absolutely fantastic. Good to see you. Hopefully see you in the office soon, or here, rather.
Yes, mate, I'll see you not this Thursday, but I'll see you next Thursday. I'll be back, a regular Thursday morning guest after that. So yeah, I've missed that. I've missed our little morning chats. It really sets me up for the day.
It does, yeah. Well, listen, we've all missed you, and so great to see you back. And our Andy, I think, is now going to be the watchword for all of it. Is William Yarwood relates to Mike Yarwood? Great comedy. No, he's better than Mike Yarwood. He's funnier, actually. Ellie, listen, thank you very much indeed for being here and for hanging around until the end. We're going to do a quick Pooch's Pooch before we go. Kelvin McKenzie, by the way, coming up at 10 o'clock today. Exclusive interview with Rupert Lowe. He's going to be head-to-head with Kelvin for an hour, and unedited, unvarnished, and you'll get everything you need from that. But let's get Pooch's Pooch.
No. Is this what you want? You want some apple? Or do you want to work? Do you want to work the same?
The size of his legs.
Is that
Is that an Arab hunting
it's
dog?
a lamb to you.
Brilliant. I'm delighted to say that my daughter Emma is here in London, so I'm going to be seeing her this afternoon. And we had a lovely time out yesterday. We went to the gym together, which was quite interesting. Those of you who are on Instagram might have seen a very funny video of me pushing her on a sled, which is not something I normally do, but it was brilliant. Have you got a picture? Yeah, you might have a picture of it. Yeah, there you go. She was quite impressed with my abilities, it has to be said. Normally speaking, we would go out and get drunk, but nowadays, this is what we do. Although we did go out and get drunk a bit later. After that, we had lunch, which was very nice. It's been an amazing show, as ever. Thank you to everyone for listening and watching. Thank you to Elena for producing. Thank you to Pooch for starting it all off. Thank you to Charlotte for setting up all the great guests. We had some amazing guests, actually. I'm not quite sure what we're doing tomorrow. But I'm not even sure. I don't think Prime Minister's Questions is on tomorrow, is it? I don't even know. I should know. Because I said last week, I think I said last Wednesday, hopefully that will be the last Prime Minister's Questions we ever see Keir Starmer at. But there might be another one tomorrow. But if there is, obviously we'll bring it to you. We'll talk about it. But coming up next, Kelvin McKenzie and Rupert Lowe in conversation. It should be a belter. You don't want to miss it. Go over to UK Live Online right now. If you can't see the clip, or you can't see the link, just go onto YouTube and go to UK Live Online, and you'll get it there. And then, of course, at 12 o'clock, Mark Littlewood with the World Cupper show. He'll be looking ahead to all the games going on tonight. He'll be talking about Germany going out on penalties and the Netherlands going out on penalties as well. And, of course, the England game, which I think comes up tomorrow night. So we will see you tomorrow morning at 7 a.m.
Why don't you relax and be a bit more MG? That would be a triumph.